Our story kicks off at Seohan University, where we meet our guy Han Tae-soo, a 23-year-old student just trying to get by. Out of nowhere, two girls bounce up to him all cheerful because they heard from their friend Yoonhae that this dude has a legendary reputation for attending classes for other people flawlessly, like he's never missed a beat. They're hoping he'll do them a solid, but instead of giving them an answer right away, Tae-soo just slides them a flyer for his proxy attendance service, no words needed. The flyer lays out his rates nice and clear: 10,000 won for showing up to a class, 100,000 for knocking out assignments, and a bold note saying exam proxies are a no-go because, that's illegal territory. One of the girls blinks at the flyer, surprised, while the other chimes in asking if he seriously charges money for this kind of thing, like it's some wild concept. Tae-soo stays cool and explains that each attendance runs 10,000 won, but hey, since it's their first time and they came through a friend's introduction, he'll hook them up with a discount, because even hustlers got a network. The girls agree on the spot, thanking him happily and promising they'll totally rely on his help, which is when Tae-soo calmly labels them his customers, keeping it strictly business. Just then, two of his buddies show up from behind, slapping him on the back and praising how clever he is, saying every time they see him, he's got this knack for turning stuff into cash. They even joke around asking if he could help them out too, but Tae-soo, without much fuss, just hands them the same flyer, because friendship doesn't mean freebies. His friends crack up at that, jokingly whining that they don't even get a discount despite being his close pals, like where's the love, man? Later on, we see Tae-soo in class while the professor takes attendance, and he quietly, without missing a beat, answers for his friends too, covering for them smooth as butter. Once the lesson wraps and the teacher dismisses everyone, Tae-soo slips out of the room right away, quick like a ghost, and his buddies notice, wondering aloud if he's dashing off to meet a girlfriend or something. They laugh it off though, figuring it's more likely he's just buried in some part-time job, because that's their Tae-soo, always grinding. They joke around, saying he'd probably grab someone by the collar and shout that the money was worth 3 months' rent, and tease that if he ever starts dating, they'll do a naked break dance and upload it to YouTube, which is both a threat and a promise. At this point, the story shifts to Tae-soo's perspective, and he reflects that for college students without parental support, every single moment counts. Like survival depends on treating time as an investment you can't waste. He heads home and checks the gold price, nodding to himself when he sees it's gone up, because that's his side hustle. He glances at his phone and notes that tomorrow's class is at 11 a.m., so if he crashes for 4 hours, he can game until 7, and if he farms about 1.5 billion gold in game, he'll score some decent cash, priorities right. Out of everything in his schedule, the time Tae-soo values most is his gaming time, since it takes zero physical effort and he can play whenever he's free, even managing to knock out assignments on lighter days while the screen erupts in battles, which he weirdly finds relaxing. Other players gather around, stunned at his performance, whispering that he's this well-known gold farmer who deals insane damage without spending a dime of real money, and they recognize him as the guy who sells in-game currency like a pro. Suddenly, this player named Fallen Power Angel confronts him in the game, hurling insults like, "You jerk, are your parents odd-numbered or what? Who told you to hunt in our guild's area? Get lost while I'm nice before I reduce your odd-numbered parents to 0, which is oddly specific and brutal. Tae-soo just ignores it and keeps playing calm as a cucumber, but the more he brushes it off, the angrier the player gets, unleashing a storm of curses and even threatening to meet him in real life and beat him up, because online rage knows no bounds. The scene then cuts to a police station, where it turns out Tae-soo filed a complaint against this abusive player, and there's the player, a young woman, frustratedly insisting to the officer that she didn't start the fight and was just provoked, but she still ends up getting scolded anyway. Just then Tae-soo strolls into the station, and the officer introduces the girl as the player behind Fallen Power Angel, whose real name is Chamia, and the moment they lock eyes, both of them freeze in shock like time just stopped. Mia blurts out excitedly that it's really Han Tae-soo, and the officer notices their reaction, asking if they know each other, which Mia confirms without hesitation, revealing that Tae-soo is her ex-boyfriend for now, dropping that for now like it's casual. Tae-soo reflects quietly, realizing the girl in front of him is indeed his ex from 5 years ago, and back then, Mia was this quiet, unnoticed kid who spent her days reading alone in the corner of class, the kind of person you'd pass by without a second thought. He remembers approaching her and placing a paper on her desk, telling her to come to the library at 4 p.m. today, waving and whispering before leaving, and she just held that paper close to her chest, smiling in happiness like it was gold. Most of Tae-soo's memories of her faded over time, except for one day, the breakup, September 27th, during fall of their second year in high school, when her family suddenly moved away overnight without a word. As he follows Mia out of the police station, that memory resurfaces hard, and he wonders why she left without saying anything, hesitating to ask because the timing feels off. Meanwhile, Mia mutters to herself in frustration about how ridiculous this is, that after all these years, she's dealing with him slapping 100,000 won settlement right in her face over some game insults. Taesu holds back his question, deciding it's not the moment, and studies her closely, asking himself if this really is the same Chamia he once knew, because at first he thought it was just someone with the same name. He wonders how much a person can change in a few years, and even though people at reunions look different, Mia feels especially unfamiliar. Not just her appearance, but her whole aura, which screams delinquent now, not the quiet girl he remembered. Taesu thinks that normally when someone says, "It's me," you'd recognize them. But with Mia, everything feels strange and off-kilter. Suddenly, Mia spins around and confronts him, demanding to know why he's following her, and accusing him of feeling guilty for demanding money over a few insults in a game, reminding him they once knew each other. She thought he'd laugh it off if she played the old friend card, but instead he asked for compensation, which she calls petty, and Taesu wonders why she's suddenly so talkative now. Mia presses on, asking if he intends to apologize, but he replies calmly that he's not following her at all. This just happens to be where he lives, pure coincidence. She challenges him again, saying she might apologize for the insults but will never forgive his bad gaming manners, adding that he's only getting off easy because it's her, like she's doing him a favor. Taesu warns her he feels no guilt and even threatens to go back to the station, reminding her he gave a discount, lowering the fine from 100,000 to 10,000 just because he knew her, but he could always raise it back. Hearing that, Mia softens a bit and admits she doesn't even have 10,000 won right now, asking if he can let it slide this once, but Taesu refuses, insisting he'll still take his 10,000. Business is business. Finally, Mia gives in and agrees to settle at 10, then adds that even with his well-off family, he's still sharp with money, destined to be wealthy one day, which feels like a backhanded compliment. At that moment, Taesu calls her name, and when she responds, he quietly asks how she's been all this time, and Mia freezes, startled by the question. Taesu notices and asks why she reacted like that, and she explains it's because he's changed. He never used to care about others, and now suddenly he's asking, which throws her off. She insists nothing worth mentioning has happened, and there's no point in sharing, reminding him they won't see each other again, and as long as she pays the money within the deadline, that's all he needs to know. She asks him not to be curious about her, just as they'd always avoided caring until now, and tells him they should continue living as if the other doesn't exist, wishing him well and walking away. Watching her leave, Taesu reflects that those were the last words of his ex-girlfriend, spoken 5 years after they reunited, and he wonders if that's really all she has to say after so long. He reminds himself she was the one who disappeared without a word, so by all rights, he should be the angry one, and admits the settlement money wasn't about desperation. It was just the only excuse he could think of to keep her around longer since he's never been good with words. As he turns and walks away, he accepts that this is truly the end and they'll never meet again. But fate, as always, has other plans, because 1 month later at Sehen University, Taesu and Mia cross paths once more, both caught completely off guard. Flustered, Mia mutters a single word under her breath, again, like the universe is trolling them, and the scene shifts to later at his apartment, where Taesu stands by the window of his new room, watching a moving truck pull up as a family relocates next door. He thinks to himself how surprising it is that someone actually found a place like this at such a time, comparing it to scoring an S-class item in a game, because it's been 4 days since the semester started, and this apartment was the only one-room spot within 5 minutes of campus, with a 5 million won deposit and 500,000 rent. It's a little old, sure, but the low cost and close distance make it rare, almost impossible to find vacant, and he reminds himself most folks here are students from the same university. As his thoughts drift, the name Chamia surfaces, and he wonders if she's commuting, replaying the sudden encounter with her the previous day, which was so unexpected he's still reeling. He remembers how it happened. Mia was called into the broadcast room, and when he saw her there, he froze, questioning why she was present, while she grew tense the moment she recognized him. Convinced he was stalking her, she felt disgusted and even reached for her phone, threatening to call the police about a suspicious man, which baffled Taesu so much he lightly tapped her head and asked what nonsense she was spouting. He quickly explained he was also a student there, and Mia's eyes widened in astonishment when she realized he studied at the same university, especially when she found out he was in media and communication, her own department. Taesu, equally shocked, questioned if she was really his junior, but Mia coldly cut him off, reminding him of what she said before, that it's better to act like strangers and mind their own business, then walked away, leaving him confused and wondering why she was so angry. As those memories resurface, he forces himself to calm down, telling himself to forget it, promising not to care anymore because it's just leftover feelings, but he can't help wondering if the family moving in next door could possibly be her. He shakes off the thought, muttering, "No way, that's impossible," and just then the doorbell rings, and when he opens it, he freezes because standing there with a plate holding a cake is Chamia herself. She greets him warmly, smiling bright as she explains she just moved in next door and hopes they can get along, and Taesu stands there utterly bewildered, while Mia, equally startled, blurts out she brought rice cake and then suddenly shoves the plate against his face without warning. Taesu doesn't even react, which makes Mia's expression shift sharply as she accuses him again of being a stalker. But he calmly points out she's the one who showed up at his door. Suspiciously, Mia asks if the apartment belongs to a friend, and Taesu replies it's his own place. Then she asks if he's planning to move out anytime soon, and he says simply, "I'm not," which visibly frustrates her as she blames herself for signing the lease so quickly just because it was cheap and close to school. Watching her reaction, Taesu only grows more confused, but soon Mia's tone shifts back to calm as she tells him it's best if they don't bother each other, acting as neighbors like the other doesn't exist. And Taesu, still stunned, reluctantly agrees, addressing her as ma'am. Suddenly, Mia picks up a fire extinguisher and reacts oddly, muttering she feels like she just overheard something she shouldn't have. And the sight of that cylinder makes Taesu uneasy, so he hurries to shut the door, but she blocks it with her foot, refusing to let it close. He asks why she's doing that, reminding her she was the first to call him Mr. But Mia presses him to open the door so they can talk about what he just said, frustrated and insistent. Taesu snaps back, pointing out they're the same age so she's just as old as him. When the door opens again, Mia confronts him once more, accusing him of still not reflecting and warning that if he confesses now, she'll only kill him halfway, which is oddly specific mercy. Taesu's thoughts drift to the past, remembering the library at sunset, his favorite time, but looking at her now, he can't understand why she changed so much, glaring at him with such hatred like she truly wants to kill him. And he tries to recall if he did anything wrong back then, but nothing comes to mind. She was the one who made the promise and never showed up. Sometime later, his doorbell rings again, pulling him from his thoughts, and he checks the camera to see Mia standing there once more. So he opens the door and firmly reminds her they agreed to act like strangers. But this time, she's drenched, clothes soaked through, looking helpless as she asks if he knows how to check water pipes because her entire floor flooded. Taesu rushes over to check the problem, explaining it looks like a pipe burst from the cold, and advises her to call the landlord, but Mia sighs, saying she already tried and the landlord isn't answering, muttering in frustration that if she'd known this would happen, she'd have spent more on a better place. Watching her, Taesu recalls a time in the past when Mia shivered from the cold like that, and he stares without realizing it, making her notice and grow startled, questioning why he's staring, so he, embarrassed, quickly turns away and denies it. Mia grabs a room cleaning stick, insisting he was staring because they made eye contact, and orders him to try fixing the situation. Then he notices her wet clothes turning see-through, revealing, well, a lot, and she mocks him, making odd faces as she teases that he's really thinking something strange at a time like this. Blushing, Taesu raises his voice in protest, insisting it's not what she thinks, and when she presses further, he stammers and blurts out with a red face that he was simply worried about her, which leaves Mia stunned for a moment. Gathering himself, Taesu grabs her collar lightly, telling her to come inside so he can give her something to dry off with, and Mia questions him, but he explains she'll catch a cold if she stays like that, though instead of accepting, she strikes him with the stick, shouting she can just stay in her own place, then sighs, admitting she's thankful for his help but telling him firmly she doesn't want to owe him anything from now on, wanting no further involvement. Entering her room, she orders him to stop meddling and just go to bed unless he wants his weekend ruined, and Taesu asks if she'll be okay once the pipe is shut off. But as she steps in, Mia freezes from the chill in the air, and Taesu points out the boiler will stop too, leaving her with no heat. Trembling, Mia stubbornly insists it's no big deal, it's just winter, and watching her, Taesu mutters she's really hard-headed, then blushing faintly, he adds an offer. If you want 1,001 per hour to stay warm in my room, seems like a fair deal, but if you don't like it, forget it. Mia interrupts, saying there should be one more condition, which catches Taesu off guard, and the scene shifts to him now standing outside his own apartment, questioning if this situation is really okay, because he only meant for her to dry off until the landlord arrived. But instead, she paid him 3,001 extra to use the shower. As she bathes inside, Taesu waits anxiously in the hallway, reflecting on how strange it is. She was so guarded and hostile just a while ago, yet now she seems far too defenseless, and more importantly, a strange feeling stirs in his chest, not excitement or anything pleasant, but like he's forgetting something very important. At that moment, two of Taesu's classmates arrive carrying drinks, one asking about the flood and the other teasing him for showing up 10 minutes earlier than planned. And Taesu suddenly realizes with a jolt that he completely forgot about this meeting. He stays silent while his classmates cheerfully chat about the party, their mood turning sentimental as they explain how quickly they rushed over after hearing his hotel flooded, calling it the guardian of their last train rides and their beloved hangout spot, worried it might not be usable for a while. Just then, one notices water leaking from the neighboring room and remarks it looks like a pipe burst there, even though they were told this was Taesu's place. And the other adds they were especially worried, which is why they came to check on it. Hearing this and glancing at Mia's room beside his, Taesu panics inwardly, his mind racing at the thought of them barging in and finding Mia inside, which would inevitably lead to trouble, so he quickly suggests they head out and drink outside that night instead. Nervously, Taesu explains his apartment is a mess from the flood, so he'll treat them, and his classmates are stunned, one shouting in disbelief if he hit his head, and the other questioning if Han Taesu, the guy known for splitting snacks down to the last piece, is really offering to pay. They both start teasing him, pulling his cheeks, one declaring they should take him to the hospital before it's too late, and the other wondering if he's even Taesu or maybe someone in disguise, a predator or an alien, which annoys Taesu enough to demand whether they're going or not. Overjoyed, the classmates eagerly agree, reasoning that if he's paying, they have no reason to refuse, joking they might never get another chance to hear such words from him again, and Taesu thinks the matter settled, deciding to finish cleaning quickly and join them downstairs. His classmates begin planning what to buy with his money and are about to leave when Mia steps out of his room, announcing she's done showering, and Taesu freezes in fear as she notices his classmates and curiously asks who they are. His classmates, stunned to see a girl coming out of Taesu's room after a shower, go completely silent, and the exact situation he feared unfolds as they grab him, demanding to know why such a beautiful girl is coming out of his place and who she is, one accusing him of leading an innocent girl astray. Flustered, Taesu quickly places a hand on Mia's shoulder and claims she's his younger sister, his real sister, shocking Mia herself at the sudden lie, but his classmates don't believe him, shouting there's no way such a pretty and classy girl could be related to someone as shabby as him, which Taesu thinks is a bit harsh. Insisting if she doesn't want more trouble, she should go along with it, explaining they're his classmates and seniors in the same department, making the lie plausible, so reluctantly, Mia plays along, confirming to them she's his sister with a cute expression that makes the classmates start falling for her instantly. Just then a bang echoes from the wall as another girl enters the scene, laughing and questioning how she never heard about this before, and seeing her, Taesu's classmates are even more shocked as the girl presses further, demanding to know their real relationship, revealed as Na Haeyeon, 21, from Taesu's hometown, a junior who secretly loved him for 10 years. The scene shifts to the next morning at the university, where Haeyeon confronts Taesu with sharp questions, asking if he's serious and really made that up, claiming that girl was his younger sister just to cover things up, but Taesu replies calmly he's telling the truth. Han presses again, asking if nothing happened between them and if he's being honest, and Taesu responds casually, repeating nothing happened, while nearby students whisper among themselves, speculating if the two are together or even dating. Taesu's mind drifts back to the previous day's chaos with the burst pipe, thankful the landlord arrived shortly afterward to smooth things over, and Haeyeon reminds herself Taesu isn't the type to lie to her. Taesu reflects inwardly, noting the girl beside him is Na Haeyeon, who admits she doesn't fully understand the situation, but since it's Taesu, she decides to believe him, muttering that if it had been Manny or Yang Han, she might doubt it. But with Taesu, it's different because she hasn't known him for just a day or two. Taesu thinks to himself that Haeyeon is not only a university junior, but also a childhood friend he's known for over 10 years, the youngest in a family of 3 sons and 1 daughter, all connected to a large taekwondo studio in their neighborhood. And even though Han is small, she was born with a natural talent for fighting, becoming a local legend by 6th grade known for epic fights, earning the nickname Crazy Chihuahua of Gwangjang-dong, or Dachai for short. As they walk toward the student council room, Haeyeon brings up something more pressing, asking about that girl and pointing out she's definitely Chamia, and Taesu frowns, asking why she's asking, with Han explaining Mia changed too much, her build and adult aura making it hard to believe she's the same person. Taesu tries to dismiss it, suggesting maybe she was still growing back then, but Han isn't convinced, pressing that it doesn't really explain it. And while the girl sounds and looks a little similar, she feels like she's staring at a completely different person, then raises the real concern. Why did Mia disappear without a word and only come back now, especially since Taesu went through so much because of her sudden disappearance? At that moment, another girl walks in and interrupts, asking who disappeared without saying anything, startling Haeyeon, who greets her as Hyu Sunbai, revealing this girl is Song Hyu, 24, the hot student council president of public administration, and also the girl Taesu secretly has a crush on. She greets them both with a good morning and thanks Haeyeon and Taesu for helping out so early even though they're not in the student council, explaining they're short-handed because of department MT preparations for tomorrow, and Haeyeon reassures her confidently she's fine with physical work, then turns to Taesu, asking if he's okay and not too busy with part-time jobs. Seeing his crush, Taesu feels his heart race and quickly replies no problem. He even quit all overlapping jobs today to make time, and she looks surprised, asking if he's really okay with going that far, so he reassures her not to worry, explaining he recently earned some extra income, and she smiles, relieved, saying it's good news. Feeling energized by her presence, Taesu insists she just tell him what to do, and watching this, Han pouts in frustration, annoyed he only acts this way in front of Haisu, and wondering just how much he's hiding. Together, Taesu and Han help Hisu organize things as she gives clear instructions, pointing out where items should go, and Taesu thinks to himself about son Hisu, a year above him and the girl he likes, though it's still a secret at that moment, when suddenly Monkey and Yanga appear, poking his cheeks and teasing him. Monkey smirks, pointing out how surprising it is that Taesu even ditched his part-time jobs just to help out, and Yanga adds, teasing, "I thought you always said you never did unpaid work," which makes Taesu think these guys must never find out about his schedule sacrifices. Yanga smirks knowingly, saying, "Oh, we know all about it, must be because of a girl, huh?" And Taesu's face immediately turns red with embarrassment as Yang Ha continues, asking if he heard it from Yang Sik, and then adding that this year's freshmen are supposed to be incredible. Mankey chimes in, saying their looks and backgrounds are on another level, but out of all of them, the girl Taesu brought yesterday really stood out. And Yang Ha agrees, claiming she's his future wife and the most impressive, then remembers yesterday Taesu and Hyeon were together, just as Hyeon appears from behind, pulling Monkey and Yanga back, hiding her irritation behind a smile and firmly telling them to just get to work. They grumble but nod, and soon everyone's working together efficiently, and when the work ends, Jisoo smiles warmly, announcing the day's tasks are finished, thanking everyone for their hard work and instructing the student council members to gather at the front gate by 7 a.m., telling the rest to come by 8, and again expressing gratitude for their effort. She specifically thanks Taesu and Han for coming early despite not being part of the council, and with a playful wink, adds that after the MT is over, drinks are on her, so don't skip out. And Taesu, fired up, declares passionately that even if he got in a car accident, he'd come running no matter what, which makes Han watch him with a mix of frustration and disgust at his over-the-top behavior, smiling awkwardly and telling him he doesn't have to go that far. Later in the evening, Taesu returns to his flat, and while unlocking the door to his room, he thinks about Mia's sudden return, admitting to himself that if he said he wasn't shaken, it would be a lie, but still, he thinks Hugh Sunb is great, and even with Chamia back, his focus remains on Haisu. At that moment, Mia passes by, and when the two see each other, they freeze, Taesu's eyes landing on the large amount of snacks she's holding. So he remarks that if she eats that much, she'll get fat, and embarrassed, Mia snaps back, asking why he cares and insisting she should be allowed to eat what she wants. She quickly explained that she hadn't bought all those snacks just for herself, since with the MT bus ride tomorrow, she was planning to share them with everyone, being a team player and all. Taesu let out a scoff, comparing her behavior to something you'd expect from a grade schooler, and reminded her that they'd already bought snacks and stuff with the club funds, so her stash was basically redundant, explaining that as a Sunbi who must have gone to plenty of these things, he could totally skip just one, while for her as a freshman, this was her first MT, so she wanted at least that much, a little piece. Taesu stepped closer, getting serious, and said that while they were at it, he had something to ask her, and when she asked what, he demanded to know what exactly annoyed her so much about him, what he'd done that was so wrong, and reminded her that she was the one who'd done something wrong in the first place, so the anger felt a bit misplaced. Hearing this, Mia's expression darkened, like a storm cloud rolling in, and Taesu told her that if she was mad at him, that was fine, but she should at least let him know why, because he couldn't fix what he didn't understand. She then slapped his hand away and glared coldly, admitting he was right, she was the one at fault, and reminded him that she'd told him not to act like he knew her, because that was the deal, and with that, Mia walked away, leaving him standing there. Taesu tried to stop her, but she left without responding, and left behind. He thought to himself in frustration about why it always turned out that way whenever they met, like the universe just loved messing with them. The scene now shifts to later, and the day of the MT finally arrived, with Haisu speaking to a group worriedly, saying that many people had decided to come last minute, leaving no room left on the bus. So because of that, she explained that 2 of them would have to go separately with her by car, and it became clear she was speaking to Taesu and Mia, asking them again if that was okay, to which Taesu and Mia looked at each other in embarrassment, unable to respond comfortably because, well, awkward mutt. Then on the bus, the students were all on their seats, and Hyeon sat quietly until her friend leaned toward her and asked what was up, and Hyeon brushed it off, saying it was nothing, but her friend teased her further, asking if she was uneasy because she couldn't see her husband, meaning Taesu Sunbi, and hearing Taesu's name, Hyeon blushed hard and looked both surprised and embarrassed, like she'd been caught red-handed. With her face still red, she stammered to her friend that she was talking nonsense, insisting that Taesu and she were nothing like that. But her friend watched her flustered reaction with amusement, saying she was only claiming he was an oppa she'd known for a long time, and then added that if it was about Taesu Sunbi, he had said he would be coming in Haisu on Nai's car, which made Han startle and ask nervously if that was true, her friend continuing that one more freshman would be there too. And she thought her name was Mia, and the moment Mia's name was mentioned, Han's expression shifted to shock, like a bomb went off. At the same time, Taesu and Mia were indeed seated in Haisu's car, and Haisu asked if they were both ready to go and if they'd forgot anything, with Mia answering she was fine and Taesu also confirming. Then Mia turned to Taesu, watching him closely, and asked what he was doing, addressing him politely as Sunbinim because formality and chaos, and Taesu, wearing a helmet, explained it was for safety and handed one to her, reminding her that life was precious. Which left Mia staring in disbelief, and asking why they needed helmets just to ride in a car, like was this a demolition derby? Taesu, trembling a bit, muttered that if it were a bumper car, helmets wouldn't be necessary if it actually were a bumper car. But his words only left Mia even more confused, and soon Haisu started driving, her reckless speed shocking Mia so much that by the time they reached their stop, Mia collapsed onto a bench, her condition poor from the overwhelming ride, looking at Taesu weakly and asking if she had died, because that felt like the afterlife. Taesu handed her a can of coffee and asked why she was basking in the light like a vampire, and Mia replied that she thought the Grim Reaper had just come down to take her, to which Taesu pointed out that now she understood why everyone else had rushed to get on the bus, since every student from second year and above already knew about Haisu Sunbi's driving, and Mia admitted with surprise that what bothered her more was the fact that even though Haisu drove like an F1 racer, the car didn't even have a single scratch, which was either skill or sorcery. She then turned to Taesu again, questioning what was with him since earlier and why he was giving her coffee, and Taesu explained that it had been bought by Haisu Sunbi, not him, so don't get any ideas, and Mia raised an eyebrow asking if that was really true, then told him to thank Haisu for her, but said she was okay because she didn't like coffee, which left Taesu shocked, asking if she really didn't like coffee. A memory flashing back in his mind of when Mia used to gulp down the coffee he brought without hesitation, like it was nectar. In the present, he muttered that it was strange, asking why he thought she liked it, reminding her how they always used to drink it at the park, and Mia interrupted, suggesting maybe he was mixing her up with someone else, adding that perhaps she used to like it back then, but she didn't really remember those old stories because memories are tricky like that. With that, she rose from the bench and looked at him seriously, saying she was sorry, but didn't want to get stuck in useless memories from the past, telling him that he knew better than anyone how tough things had been for her back then, and that whenever she saw him, those memories returned and drove her crazy, like a loop she couldn't escape. Still, she admitted that whatever the case, they had ended up meeting again like this, attending the same school, the same department, and even living as neighbors, so because of that, she said she wouldn't ask him to act like he didn't know her at all. And then she bowed and pleaded with him to treat her like someone he didn't know, just like any ordinary junior, promising to apologize for everything harsh she'd said up until now. And after saying this, Mia turned and walked away, leaving Taesu alone with her words. Taesu sat in silence, his thoughts sinking into the weight of Mia's words, admitting to himself that what she'd given him was a clear rejection, the most polite yet decisive rejection he'd ever experienced. Haisu appeared and asked what he was doing sitting alone on the bench, and Taesu quickly replied that he was just watching the clouds, which made Haisu tilt her head, surprised, and ask if cloud watching was fun. And after a pause, Haisu admitted to himself that it wasn't really that fun, but he stuck with it. Once more, his mind returned to Mia's words, reflecting that what she'd said did make sense. People said even mountains changed in 10 years. The scene shifted to Haisu and Taesu standing together, with Haisu speaking on the phone with Subin while Taesu, lost in thought, found himself gazing at her. And seeing this, Haisu turned to him and asked what was wrong, her gentle behavior making Taesu blush for a moment as his heart began to race, because she had that effect. Flustered, he quickly remarked that she'd chosen a really nice place for this MT, and Haisu brightened instantly, happily saying that she and Subin had put a lot of thought into it, explaining that it was their last gathering before graduation and they wanted it to be as memorable as possible. And hearing this, Taesu acknowledged her words, noting that they were spoken like a true Sunbi. And inside, his resolve grew stronger, telling himself he had only one goal, to confess to Haisu before she graduated. And even though Mia had returned, there was no wavering in his heart, like a steady flame. The two continued walking together, talking lightly, with Taesu expressing concern about the expensive place she'd booked, pointing out that he'd come without paying, and Haisu reassured him that it was fine, saying that after all he'd done for them, this was nothing. Then she asked where the freshman was, and Taesu replied that Mia had said she'd walk around a bit and then come back. And at that moment, Mia appeared dressed in a full-game outfit with a helmet on her head and a hockey stick in hand, asking if they were there and declaring she was all set, which made Taesu find her appearance odd while Haisu smiled brightly, calling the new freshman a funny one, and looking at Taesu, Haisu then asked if her driving was really that scary, and without hesitation, Taesu put on his helmet and said it wasn't scary at all, which worried Haisu as she asked if it was really that much. Scene shifted again, showing Mia in rough shape, with other girls crowding around asking what had happened to her. One of them explaining that Mia had been this year's unlucky passenger of Haisu Sunbi's ride, and adding that probably only Taesu could come out of it looking fine, another girl muttering that unless someone was as unfazed as him, no one would last through it. And just then, Taesu felt a tap on his shoulder, turning to find a girl standing there asking if he had a moment. It was another freshman, Shindabin, a 20-year-old who'd just joined the university, and the scene then moved forward to Haisu standing in front of everyone with a wide smile, announcing that the freshman orientation for the year was officially finished, her cheerful voice carrying through the hall as she introduced the next part of the night, a casual hangout with drinks, explaining that the organizers had already split everyone into groups of 6, mixing upperclassmen and freshmen to make sure everyone could talk and enjoy themselves. And lifting her hand high, she called for cheers in the name of the mighty medic, the hall immediately echoing with voices as everyone raised their cups and shouted together, laughter filling the place as the party kicked off. But then Mia suddenly stepped forward looking hesitant and asked if she could switch groups, the thought leaving him uneasy, and across the hall male students glared at him, jealousy written all over their faces. Just then Dabin raised her juice, lightly tapping his cup with hers, and gave a playful wink, leaning closer, the bold move catching Hyeon's eye, and her face stiffened with jealousy, not wanting to lose. She quickly lifted her own drink and joined in with a stiff cheers, leaving Taesu caught between the two girls, his gaze drifting toward Mia, who was sipping her drink, and Mia noticed and asked if they really had to clink glasses and say cheers every time before drinking. Taesu replying that it wasn't really necessary, but while drinking, he admitted to himself that this MT was already starting to feel tiring. This year's MT had way more attendees than usual, and the reason was simple. The trio of influencer freshmen, Shin Dabin, Ha Yoonji, and Do Yanwoo, with Ha Yoonji being a study vlogger and live streamer who'd started streaming back in 9th grade and built up around 40,000 subscribers. Do Yanwoo, who'd entered after retaking the exam, running a horror radio channel with her pale skin and husky voice making her stand out in that niche. And as for Shin Dabin, Taesu realized he didn't know much about her, so curious he asked. Then Yoonji explained that Dabin was the person behind Dabin's Fun Day, a very popular variety gaming channel with around 320,000 subscribers, praising her as a great gamer and streamer, and Dabin, embarrassed, waved it off, saying she wasn't anything special and only got attention for being a little decent at games. But to Taesu, she seemed like the most famous one of the three, and he remembered how Haisu Sunbi once mentioned that this year had many well-known freshmen. That was why she grouped them with him to prevent any incidents, calling him the safest choice. Dabin then asked if Taesu played games, and he answered that he did, but only once in a while, and when Dabin casually called him Oppa, Han silently fumed, upset at how easily she addressed him. While at the same time, Taesu noticed the sharp glares from the other guys who were clearly frustrated that all the pretty girls were gathered around him, and he thought to himself that their jealousy explained why so many people wanted to come to the MT. And suddenly, Dabin's eyes lit up as she brought up the game Gook story, and Taesu was surprised to hear that Dabin also played the game, she revealing that she'd been into it since elementary school, and she asked which server he used, Taesu answering that he was on the Sunduk server, and Dabin's eyes lit up with excitement. That was her server too, and shocked, Taesu turned to Mia and asked if she'd played on the same server as well, and Mia froze, quickly gulping down her juice before nervously stammering, pretending not to understand, asking if he was talking about goob serving, like working at a restaurant. And inside, she reminded herself of their deal to act like they didn't know each other, because that was the pact. Dabin then mentioned a certain detail about their server, saying there was a notorious gold farmer named Han Yongdong, Han Taesu, a real troublemaker, and it had the exact same name as his. And Taesu admitted that it was indeed him, and Dabin stared at him, processing the truth, and after a moment she excused herself and left for the bathroom. Whereas she washed her hands, she muttered that she'd suspected it from the start, confessing that the moment she heard the name Han Yongdong during the welcome party, she had a feeling, and now that she'd confirmed it was truly him, Do Yanwoo, who was nearby, remarked that since their school was in Yongdong and his name was Haesu, it would actually be stranger if it wasn't. Then questioning why Dabin had been looking for him so intently, and grinding her teeth, Dabin revealed the reason, explaining that in the game, her master, Fallen Power Angel, had been forced to quit after running into trouble, made to pay compensation money all because of that idiot. And before leaving, her master had told her she was gone for good and asked Dabin to carry on the future of their Gook guild, and slamming her palms against the sink, Dabin fumed, cursing that it was all because of him. If not for Taesu, she and her master would have already defeated the final boss. And Do Yanwoo asked what Dabin was planning to do. Was she thinking about revenge? And Dabin gave a sly grin, saying instead of revenge, she would seduce him, and Yanwoo was taken aback. But Dabin confidently boasted that she had never once failed when she decided to win someone over. The narration then cut back to their school life, noting that though they now met again as senior and junior, in reality they were bitter enemies, and being in the same school meant their paths crossed often, and little by little their feelings started to stir. And by the time those emotions reached their peak, Dabin revealed her true aim, crushing her juice under her foot and declaring that she would trample on him at the very moment he confessed his feelings. This, she said, was the perfect way to avenge her master. And Yanwoo gave her a knowing look, teasing that her head was like a flower garden but admitting it was strangely cute. And as they stepped out of the bathroom together, Dabin shivered and complained about the chill, grumbling about why there were only 2 bathrooms for so many people and admitting she hadn't wanted to use the outdoor one because of the freezing weather, muttering that it was what happened when a place got too crowded. and just then, she bumped into someone, startled. She looked up and found herself face to face with three big men, who looked her over, commenting that she was cute and that they'd seen her around before. And Dabin realized that her insides are going to get cleaned by those men's Excalibur, which is a terrifying mental image. The scene then shifted, showing Yanwu hurrying toward the group, explaining that Dabin was now surrounded by members of the university wrestling team. But instead of trouble, the moment had turned into an unexpected fan signing event, and Haisu observed the scene and asked if that was really a problem. And hearing this, the other students grew excited and began shouting that it was a signing event with Dabin, rushing for one as well, and with many of them rushing forward, eager to join in. Haisu quickly shouted for Taesu to help out inside and asked Hyeon to give her a hand, and Han agreed immediately, while Taesu, however, questioned whether he should be going outside to help instead of Hyeon. And just as he prepared to move, Mia grabbed his shirt from behind, urgently telling him not to go outside, warning that there was a problem in the girls' dorm, and together they moved toward the dormitory. And as they arrived, Taesu hesitated, wondering aloud if he could even enter since it was the girls' dorm, and Mia silenced him firmly, telling him they had to see for themselves. And Taesu tried to question what the matter could possibly be, but Mia quickly pointed toward a charging outlet, typing on her phone. She explained that it was actually a hidden camera, and Taesu's face froze in shock, and he let out a startled sound, but Mia grew irritated and told him to stay quiet again. And as they began walking away, Taesu turned to her curiously and asked how she'd even figured it out. And Mia stopped for a moment, not sure what he meant, and he explained that he was talking about the outlet-style camera, pointing out that most people wouldn't notice something like that just by looking. And Mia said she'd seen something similar before, but stressed that the real issue wasn't how she spotted it. What mattered was when it had been set up, who placed it, and where else more could be hidden, and Taesu added his own thoughts, repeating the what and how, but suddenly remembered something from Mia's past. In his mind, he saw her shouting in the library once, saying the most important question was always why. She'd shouted it so loudly that everyone stared at her, leaving her embarrassed. And after that, she'd sunk into her chair, keeping quiet. And in that same memory, Taesu had once asked if that was the reason she often came to the library to read. And Mia had replied with passion, saying books were about people, how they thought, what pushed them forward, and that she loved following along, always asking herself that one question. But why though? And at the time, Taesu had thought that her way of thinking always pulled him in before he realized it. Mia said that the most important thing now was still that same question. But why though? The real question was why someone had done this. And hearing her say those exact words again left Taesu shocked. Remembering how even when he told her it didn't sound smooth, she kept saying it anyway, claiming it just felt natural to her. And Taesu found himself staring at her without realizing it. And Mia quickly noticed, asking why he was looking at her that way. And he hesitated, then admitted that the polite tone she was using sounded strange to him. Understanding it must feel awkward for her to turn to him when he was the only one there, especially after how harshly she'd spoken to him earlier at the rest stop. And Mia's cheeks flushed a little at his words, and with a nervous smile she apologized, admitting she felt like an outsider. And because of that, there was no one else she could rely on for something like this. And hearing this, Taesu thought to himself that she must have been worrying about it for a while, and Mia then reached out her hand and said she would speak casually if that's what he wanted, asking him directly for help. And she addressed him properly as Taesu Sunbi. And Taesu froze at her words, unable to respond right away, and seeing his silence, Mia pressed on, saying he had always been oddly sharp about things like this, remembering the time a game console went missing in class, and while everyone else gave up, he didn't, and she admitted it was a little embarrassing to ask him for help when they'd barely talked. And at that moment, Taesu felt that the Mia standing before him was the same Mia he had once known, and Taesu asked Mia about the camera, wondering if it could have been installed by the dorm providers, and Mia explained that it was unlikely. She'd checked other girls' rooms thinking it might be the case. Theirs was the only one with it, and she added that she didn't think any of the guys had done it either, since President Sunbi had even set up a watch to make sure no boys entered the girls' dorm. And Taesu began thinking about Haisu and felt his face turn red, and Mia continued, reminding him that after they arrived, she'd been lying in bed the whole time because of her car sickness. And she remembered clearly that when she first went into the room, there was nothing like that. And the first time she sensed something was wrong was right before orientation. And hearing this, Taesu concluded that whoever installed it must have done so then, and Mia agreed, saying it could only have been one of the three girls sharing the room with her, Du Yanwu, Shindabin, or Haeunji, or perhaps someone close to them. And Taesu thought carefully to himself, if Mia was telling the truth about everything, it meant the situation was an inside job. Someone in their department was acting with malice. Mia told him not to tell the others yet, and Taesu looked confused and asked why. And Mia explained that they still didn't know who did it or why, since they were not sure. And she feared that if strange rumors spread, an innocent person might get hurt. And blushing faintly, Taesu asked if they should at least tell Haisu Sunbi, believing she was trustworthy and she was also the student council president after all. And Mia stared at him in surprise and asked if Haisu was the one he had a crush on. And hearing this question, Taesu blushed furiously, gripping his can of coffee tightly, stammering nervously, denying it and asking what she meant by crush. And Mia watched his behavior closely and pointed out that he was pretending not to know, even though he obviously did. And at that moment, Hyun popped out from the bushes in a drunken state, asking what they were talking about, then looked directly at Mia, declaring that she'd finally found her unnai, and she pressed again, asking what the two of them had been sneaking off to do. And Taesu froze in shock at the sight of her drunken state and immediately asked where the wrestling club guys were. And Han answered with irritation that they'd been getting on her nerves, so she'd thrown them all, and Mia reacted with surprise, questioning if Han had really thrown them all, and Han puffed her cheeks in frustration, and Mia called out to her name softly, feeling awkward inside, thinking to herself that ever since she'd run into Hyun in the hallway, things had felt uncomfortable, and Han suddenly shouted at Mia, demanding to know what was going on with her and Taesu, and Mia grew confused at the question, and Han raised her voice again, asking what Mia really wanted to do, reminding her that she'd said coming to the same school as Oppa was just a coincidence, that moving in next door was just another coincidence, and that they should not act like they knew each other anymore, and Hyun accused her further, saying even when they arrived, she kept up the same act, but now she'd secretly called him out in the middle of the night, proving herself to be a liar. And as she shouted these words, Han burst into tears, crying harder, saying Mia had claimed that she and Taesu were long over, that she didn't even like him anymore, and she repeated her frustration, then collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, and seeing her like this, both Mia and Taesu grew deeply concerned. Later, the protagonist narrates, just as Mia suggested, until we're sure, we decided to keep it secret from everyone except Haisu, and we agreed to take action in the morning and ended the discussion there. But when morning came, an incident broke out, and Taesu saw a crowd of students gathering, gossiping, and some even fighting, his chest tightening with anxiety as he watched the chaos. And in the middle of the crowd, Yoonji raised her voice, pointing straight at Mia, shouting that it was her, claiming she'd seen it herself, accusing Mia of trying to secretly spy on their room by installing a camera. And Haisu grew anxious and tried to calm everyone down, asking them to stop and settle themselves. But confusion spread among the students as they murmured about what they'd just heard, unsure about the mention of a camera, and Hyun clung to Taesu in distress, speaking of secret spying while questioning what such words even meant, trembling as she wondered why Mia, her unnai, would ever be involved in something like that, and Taesu gently placed a hand on her shoulder, assuring her that there was no way Mia would do such a thing, and Mia observed the situation carefully, realizing this was unexpected. She hadn't thought anyone would confront her so directly, and she recognized the one who stood against her, Ha Yoonji, and it was then revealed that this girl was the culprit, Ha Yoonji, 20 years old, who shared a room with Mia, and also a famous YouTuber. And according to Mia, during the freshman welcome party, Yoonji had acted overly friendly, making things quite uncomfortable. Taesu discreetly signaled to Mia not to worry and promised that he would step in right away if things went wrong, being the backup plan. But Mia responded with her own signal, telling him it was fine and that she could handle it herself because she's got this. She thought to herself that Taesu was more quick-witted than she had ever imagined, his foresight surprising her, like he'd planned for every angle. We then get a flashback, diving into the past, where Taesu carried the drunken Hyun on his shoulder as he walked alongside Mia, talking to her, and he spoke of wanting to stop looking for the culprit, which shocked Mia, and she questioned his words, asking if he truly meant that he wanted to stop searching, like giving up entirely. And Taesu said the answer was simple. They just needed to make the culprit reveal herself, like setting a trap. Mia asked if he meant a face reveal, to which Taesu clarified by questioning how she planned to find her. And Mia explained she had intended to use the usual method by taking turns keeping watch until the culprit came to retrieve the device, since eventually someone would have to collect it, stakeout style. Taesu countered, saying that the culprit could notice the device was being watched and might destroy the evidence right away, like a panic move. And Mia asked what they would do then, just sit back and do nothing, frustrated. Taesu then asked when people let their guard down the most, and Mia wondered if he was giving her a riddle, raising an eyebrow. And Taesu explained that the answer was early in the morning right after waking up, reasoning that if someone had been able to sleep soundly. The flashback now ends and we return to the present moment, where Yoonji continued accusing Mia, claiming she had seen her hiding the camera that morning, shouting that Mia could deny it all she wanted, but others had seen it too, and she urged them to confirm her words, trying to build a case. Dabin stepped forward, saying that Mia had indeed been acting strange, poking around her belongings in the morning, and she added that she had seen her put something in her pocket, though at the time she hadn't thought it was a camera, just odd behavior. Taesu thought to himself that right now the only people who knew exactly what was going on were Haisu Sunbi, Chamia and himself, a small circle. Mia smiled at Yoonji, brushing off the tension with a laugh. She remarked that so this was what all the fuss was about, thinking it was something serious, and if this was what the accusations were about, then she revealed the object in question, pulling out a toothbrush, and Dabin reacted in shock, questioning if it was really just a toothbrush, like that's anticlimactic. Mia turned to Yoonji, pointing out that it was only a toothbrush and questioned what she meant about it being a camera, and Yoonji faltered nervously, stammering that she had only happened to overhear something, claiming she had heard Mia speaking over the phone, saying she was with famous people at the moment, and that she was going to send them videos of everyone, which was a stretch. Mia asked if Yoonji wanted to see for herself, holding out her phone and explaining that if Yoonji believed she had recorded something on camera and was planning to send it, then she should check her phone directly, offering her call logs, her messages, her gallery, whatever Yoonji wanted. And if nothing was there, then all Yoonji needed to do was admit she misheard, say it was a misunderstanding, and apologize, and Mia says that she is perfectly fine with that. She even added that if Yoonji still doubted her, she could check everything herself, like an open book. Mia then emptied her bag in front of everyone, and out came her notebooks, pens, and charger. Nothing else, and Yoonji grew more shaken and stuttered in confusion, asking what was going on, like her plan was crumbling. Mia kept smiling as she showed her belongings, confirming that this was everything she had brought, aside from some snacks they had all shared yesterday, which she didn't need to show. And Haisu, worried, tells her she didn't need to go this far, but Mia reassured Haisu, saying it was all right since everyone misunderstood things sometimes, and there was nothing faster than showing it yourself, cutting through the drama. Hearing this, Yoonji grew scared and nervous, and Taesu observed the scene carefully, realizing that with this it was over, and he thought that if there was a culprit, it had to be one of Mia's roommates because the reason was simple. It was too risky to manage the device otherwise, and if they tried to openly hunt for the culprit, she might decide to hide for good, and the optimal strategy had always been to make the culprit expose herself. And he recalled how he had even prepared in case the culprit tried to retrieve the camera while he and Mia stepped out. He had wiped a little of his own hand cream on the spot so he could identify her later by scent, but the culprit hadn't attempted to retrieve it, which meant she didn't know the camera had already been discovered. And with this information gap, things became much easier. The culprit could not predict when they might go to collect it. And his original plan had been to wait for a panicked culprit to make contact with them first. But instead, Yoonji had attacked openly, and he wondered if she could truly deal with the consequences of this reckless move. But more importantly, what unsettled him most was Chamia and her composure. Even under such accusations, she stayed calm, her nerves unshaken, like a rock. Yoonji, however, refused to give up, though she had nothing left to say. She argued desperately that there were still places they hadn't checked, shouting that Mia's body should be searched, reasoning that Mia could have shown her phone and bag on purpose to deflect suspicion, hiding the device on herself instead, and Haisu was stunned, calling out in disbelief at Yoonji's words, like that's too far. Mia removed her glasses with a smile, asking seriously if it really needed to go that far, urging Yoonji to just admit it was a misunderstanding, to apologize and call it a mistake so they could end it there, explaining she was giving Yoonji a chance, reminding her that even if she messed up or made a mistake, this was her chance to let it go quietly. And with a cold glare, she pressed again, asking if they really had to take it that far, and Taesu grew worried. Noticing that Chamia now looked genuinely angry, and he tried to intervene, shouting for her to hold back and not get violent. But Mia discarded her jacket and glasses, shocking everyone. Her fit, curvy waist and her massive chest was revealed, striking in its beauty, and Mia faced Yoonji and asked what was next, mocking the idea of hiding the device in her hair, challenging where Yoonji would claim she had hidden. And this time, Mia stepped closer to Yoonji, her voice low but sharp. If Yoonji still could not trust her even after all this, she asked if she should take everything off to finally satisfy her doubts, and Yoonji broke down as tears welled in her eyes. Later, Taesu placed a jacket on Mia and asked if it was really necessary to go this far, and Mia blushed at his support and thanked him quietly, like a soft moment. After that, Taesu explained that they searched the entire pension, but in the end the camera couldn't be found and the incident ended with Yoonji surrendering. And Yoonji, overwhelmed, cried as she apologized to Mia, and Haisu then addressed everyone, telling them that they should leave the story there. The misunderstanding was cleared up, a proper apology was given, and Mia had even said she forgave Yoonji. But Mia, however, showed no emotion as she stood there. And Taesu continued admitting that things could have blown up even further, but it was Mia who decided to end it there, and he hadn't expected her to go so far as to rampage like that, but still it worked. At that moment, Mia called out to President Haisu, asking if she could take Yoonji to talk privately, and Haisu asked if she meant right now, and Mia reassured her that she wasn't going to hit her, reminding her that she had already said she forgave her, and Yoonji grew nervous at the request, and Mia smiled and added that if they ended it like this, things would only be awkward between them, suggesting Yoonji should at least treat her to a drink. And with that, Mia led Yoonji away, and as they left, Haisu quickly called Taesu over to keep a watch on the two. The next scene showed Mia sitting with Yoonji, asking to hear her side of things, and Taesu was there as well, showing Yoonji the camera and explaining that the reason he didn't report her right away was because he wanted to confirm something, asking why she had set it up and what her goal was, and Yoonji was shocked that Taesu had the camera, and Taesu pressed further, reminding her that Mia had said it before. She didn't want to blow things out of proportion, urging Yoonji to be honest, and nervously. Yoonji questioned why he was holding the camera, insisting that Mia must have had it, and just then, Han appeared and tugged at Yoonji's cheeks, declaring that she had held onto the camera the whole time, and Taesu explained that this was the reason the camera never turned up in Mia's search. The idea that Mia had the camera was only to make it look that way. In reality, the camera had been hidden in the room, and following Mia's actions, he had called the other girls using Haisu by his name. And while the room was empty, he bought time. The story shifted to the past where Han had discovered the camera. Looking at it, she wondered if this was what Oppa had been talking about. And Taesu narrated that by letting Han, who wasn't involved, collect and keep it, they effectively removed the evidence. And he turned to Yoonji, explaining that it must have been confusing. The camera was gone as soon as she woke up, and she was suddenly called out with no time to handle it. And in the end, turned out Mia didn't even have the device. Mia added that Yoonji probably tried very hard not to look suspicious, but unfortunately, her behavior still showed, explaining that when the three girls were leaving, the only one who glanced at the power outlet was Yoonji, and Taesu then revealed the memory card. When they checked it, they found footage of Yoonji turning on the camera, and there were other videos as well, but they all had one common feature. The camera was always facing towards the luggage, not the others, and exposed. Yoonji broke down crying and promised to tell everything, saying she never had bad intentions. Taesu clarified the situation further. Yoonji, who had some recognition even before, often had her belongings damaged or stolen, and she became very stressed because of it. And on group trips like this, she installed the camera only for security, and she hadn't managed to delete the data or react quickly enough because she never imagined anyone would notice. And when it seemed like Mia had the camera, she panicked, fearing Mia might use it against her, and even if she hadn't meant harm. If others found out she set it up, her reputation and everything she had built would disappear instantly. And Yoonji explained that the device had a button to wipe the data completely from outside, so she had tried whatever she could to get it back. And through tears, Yoonji explained further, if the device was hidden, she couldn't do anything, but if she could just get it back, she might be able to fix things. And before Mia came at her first, she felt she needed to make the first move. It was all she could think about, and her mind had gone blank. And this was the full story of what happened in the morning. After Yoonji admitted her mistake, Mia responded calmly, saying she had already figured it was something like that. If Yoonji had bad intentions, she wouldn't have only filmed the luggage. Mia finally told her she would trust her, and everyone was surprised by her words and looked at her in silence. And Mia questioned why they were all looking at her like that. And Yoonji admitted her mistake and took full responsibility, and Mia said, "That was enough." And Yoonji looked at her in disbelief, asking with tears if Mia was really okay with this. She couldn't believe Mia was willing to forgive after everything she had done, and she cried, calling her Mia Unnai, overwhelmed by guilt. But Mia reassured her again, saying it was fine. She had only been curious about why Yoonji installed it, and it wasn't as if she had become the culprit herself. And smiling, Mia explained further she didn't want to ruin the department's mood this early in the semester, and they could always watch Yoonji a bit longer to see if she was telling the truth. And then suddenly, Mia put on a creepy face and hinted darkly that if Yoonji was lying. Her unsettling expression alone was enough to terrify Yoonji completely, and Han turned to Taesu with disbelief, remarking that Mia seemed like a completely different person from the one she knew, wondering aloud if this was really the same Mia Unnai. And as Mia now appeared to be someone else entirely, Taesu fell into thought at her words, uncertain himself. The story then shifted to the night when Mia and Taesu were investigating together, and Han drunk had come to them, walking along the road. Mia suddenly thanked Taesu, addressing him as Sunbinim, and Taesu, surprised, asked why she was thanking him so suddenly. And Mia explained it was for helping out without asking anything, admitting she had been worried since after being so harsh with him, he could have ignored her. And she turned to him then, confessing that she might have misunderstood him a little. And back in the present, Taesu recalled that moment in his mind, thinking to himself that maybe it was so, and that was how the small commotion at the MT quietly came to an end. Respecting Mia's wish not to blow things up, they had kept it between only those who knew, and Yoonji had calmed down and handed over the device to them. And looking at the memory card, Taesu reflected further with this evidence in their hands. Yoonji probably would not try anything again, especially since she had promised to cooperate with anything that came up from now on. And she had also told the other girls in her room, and perhaps because they had experienced similar things. They sympathized with her quickly, and at that moment, Do Yanwoo and Dabin arrived, and Dabin grew emotional and apologized tearfully to Mia, saying she was the worst. And Taesu noted that in fact, the others spent more time apologizing to Mia. After that, Mia turned to Taesu, thanking him for everything and admitting she had not expected his quick thinking to work so well. And Taesu asked if she would really be okay, and Mia questioned what he meant by that, and Taesu clarified, asking if she was not embarrassed to return after everyone had seen her with barely any clothes on, reminding her that even if she had been angry, wasn't her outburst a bit much? And Mia, flustered, asked what else she was supposed to do. Just stand there and let Yoonji keep pushing. She explained it was too annoying to ignore, and besides it had only been a sports bra. And Mia quickly added that she was not that kind of girl, making sure he understood clearly. And Taesu wondered what kind of girl she meant, and blushing deeply, Mia clarified that she was not someone who just stripped anywhere and everywhere, insisting that when she said something once, he should understand it the first time, her face growing redder with embarrassment. And seeing this, Taesu thought to himself that he had misunderstood her words earlier and realized she had meant something else. Still, Taesu remarked that if Yoonji had been lying completely, things could have turned out differently, and Mia responded firmly that she would have involved the police in that case, admitting honestly that Yoonji did not seem like that type of person and that she had only panicked and done what she could. And Mia concluded by saying that if such a day ever came, they would deal with it. And then Taesu accepted this, thinking that if she was fine with the outcome, then it was not really his business. Mia went on to share her own feelings, explaining that her only goal was to graduate peacefully without any trouble. And the moment she had discovered the camera, she had been terrified, and even now the memory still sent chills down her spine. And hearing this, Taesu grew confused and Mia continued, saying that now there was no one left to disturb her peaceful school life, and Taesu questioned if she really believed that, and Mia asked what he meant. He reminded her that she was talking about a peaceful school life right after the chaos she had caused, and Mia paused to think, but before she could answer, many students suddenly surrounded her, and to her shock, they began snapping photos of her. Because of the incident, Mia had unexpectedly become famous, and some students came up to her directly, telling her she should not have hidden how cute she was, and Mia grew extremely flustered at the attention. And nearby, Taesu's two friends, Monkey and Yonghua, looked furious and confronted Taesu, demanding an explanation from him since he had told them that Mia was his younger sister. And Taesu explained his side, noting quietly that Mia herself had no idea her careless actions had now made her the center of attention for the entire department. And the crowd grew larger, students staring at Mia without her glasses and becoming even more excited, exclaiming that she looked much better without her dorky disguise. Some admitting they had thought she was cute even before, asking if she knew how to do makeup, offering to teach her, begging her to make the same expression she had shown earlier at Yoonji. And at that moment, Mia shouted at everyone to stop for a second, her voice filled with panic, and Taesu finished his thoughts, noting that she had definitely left her mark as someone unforgettable. The scene shifted to social media where a post related to her was there, and seeing this, Mia was left utterly shocked. And the second night of MT finally arrived and the atmosphere grew even more energetic, with Yoonji grabbing the microphone, announcing loudly that for the crime of dampening the mood of the medic freshman MT, she Yoonji would once again liven things up. And with that, she stepped onto the stage and began to sing, and Taesu observed that despite a few incidents here and there, the 3-day 2-night trip was finally nearing its end in peace. And listening to Yoonji's singing, Haisu admitted with a sigh of relief that she was glad everything had wrapped up well, confessing she had been anxious earlier in the day. And standing beside her, Taesu nodded in agreement, his thoughts drifting to Mia, who had been caught up in the earlier incident. Since morning, the Sunbees hadn't left her alone, constantly teasing and bothering her. And at one point, someone even tried to feed her a snack, telling her to open her mouth and snapping back in annoyance. Mia insisted she could eat on her own, and watching the situation, Taesu thought to himself that she had definitely been singled out, and this treatment would likely continue for at least 3 months. But then he reminded himself this wasn't the time to worry about her. The whole reason he had come to the MT was to spend time with Haisu Sunbi, even skipping 2 days of work for it. And yet, he hadn't managed to accomplish anything. And just then, a few students approached Haisu saying there were only 2 bottles of soju left and asking if she had any more. And surprised at how fast it had run out, Haisu reacted with disbelief. And Taesu thought this might be a good chance for them to step out together. But Haisu decided it wouldn't look right for her to leave just then. So she asked Taesu to do her a favor instead. And hearing her request, Taesu blushed before agreeing, inwardly admitting to himself that moments like this were the reason he always fell short. And handing him a card, Haisu asked him to go buy beer. And Taesu accepted, telling himself it was fine. He just needed to hurry back quickly, but still, he couldn't help but think it was a bit much to go alone. And right then, Yonghua called out to everyone, saying he would demonstrate his magic trick of making beer disappear in one gulp. And if he succeeded, they should treat him to a meal later. And the girls immediately asked why it had to be them. And after that, Taesu headed toward the girls' dorm, where the girls greeted him cheerfully, most already tipsy. And Han especially was in bad shape, having drunk far too much. One girl doodled on Hyeon's face, while another mentioned that once Hyeon finished getting ready, they should take a group photo to remember the night, and she even asked Taesu if he wanted to join in. And watching this scene, Taesu muttered inwardly that it was better to just go on his own rather than drag along such odd company. And he reflected that when Mia had caused chaos in the morning, he never thought a calm evening like this would follow. And with that thought in mind, he set out alone to buy the beer. And as he walked, his thoughts turned back to Mia, wondering where she had gone. And he realized it was the first time he had seen her in 5 years. So it was only natural that her appearance had changed so much, but still, she seemed strangely knowledgeable about the outlet-type camera. And back then, she had insisted that nothing worth mentioning had ever happened, and he couldn't help but wonder how she managed to stay so calm in such situations, and what exactly had happened to her during those missing years. Could she have gotten tangled up in something dangerous? And just then, he spotted Mia standing on the roadside, quietly enjoying the night breeze as the moonlight lit up her face. and when Taesu called out to her, she flinched in surprise and immediately tried to run off, demanding how he had known she was there. And watching her flee left Taesu bewildered, and he called after her. And in her rush, Mia stumbled and fell, and Taesu hurried over and extended a hand, asking if she was okay, and Mia winced from the fall, but then to his surprise, blushed slightly as she met his eyes. And Taesu commented on how shocked she looked, almost as if she had just seen a ghost, and Mia quickly apologized, asking him to pretend he hadn't seen her, and even promised to treat him to ice cream later, and her words only deepened Taesu's confusion. Then she awkwardly asked if he was running an errand, adding that she thought the Sunbees had sent him out to catch her. And hearing this, Taesu realized just how much she must have been through, like she was genuinely on edge. The two of them then set off together to buy beer, walking side by side in the quiet night, and on the way, Taesu mentioned how intense their department always felt, like a storm of personalities. Mia agreed, even suggesting they might be too much, joking that maybe the school only chose extroverts during interviews, which made Taesu respond uncertainly, not sure if she was kidding or serious. While Mia added that despite their overbearing energy, they were still good people at heart, and she admitted that when she first arrived at the pension, she had worried about fitting in like an outsider looking in. Hearing her honesty lifted Taesu's spirits, and he thought to himself that he never imagined he would get to share a moment like this with her again, a quiet walk under the stars. As they walked further, he pointed out how familiar the area looked, and Mia asked what he meant. So Taesu reminded her of the back hill near their school that they used to visit, and Mia fell quiet, taking in her surroundings, and Taesu thought that he never would have believed he'd have the chance to walk and talk with Mia again like this, asking if the place sparked any memories, reminding her of when they used to borrow stacks of books after school and stay at the library until the sun set, lost in their own world. The scene shifted to the past, showing their high school days, with Taesu and Mia reading together until at one point Mia burst into tears over a character's death, resting her head on his lap, and Taesu had teased her then, complaining that her tears and snot had stained his pants, and the memory made him laugh even now, a warm flashback. Back in the present, Mia tilted her head, saying she didn't remember that happening, but for Taesu, it was still vivid, one of the few joyful memories from his school years, a bright spot in the blur. Hearing this, Mia remarked that he had changed. She didn't remember him being this easygoing before, and Taesu replied that people couldn't stay the same forever, saying he had learned how to get along with others through part-time jobs, and he reminded her that neither of them were kids anymore, and since they'd continue crossing paths at school, it would be better to apologize properly if there was anything left unresolved between them, clearing the air. Mia went silent for a moment, then admitted she had wanted to keep her distance, believing it was for the best, and she apologized if she had been too harsh in the moment, a rare softness. Hearing this left Taesu stunned, and he then asked her about their very first meeting at school, wondering if she remembered what he had said, and Mia asked if he meant on the day of the entrance ceremony, and the scene cut back to that day, Mia telling him to mind his own business, saying it would be better if they stayed apart before walking away, a cold dismissal. Back in the present, Mia explained that it hadn't been his fault. She said she had simply wanted them to remain strangers as much as possible, and she wondered aloud why fate kept throwing them back together like this. If they hadn't met again at the police station or on campus, she never would have treated him so coldly, and she apologized again, calling him Taesu, but insisted she didn't want to bring up the past, admitting those years had been difficult, but if he truly wanted to know, she could explain eventually, since they'd continue to see each other until graduation. Avoiding one another would be impossible, and her words left Taesu deeply unsettled. Mia continued, saying that once graduation came, she would no longer be around, and as she started to walk away, she told him they should head back since everyone was probably waiting, adding that the night air was getting a little chilly, and Taesu stayed quiet. He feared that if he pushed further, he might end up reopening wounds she had tried to bury, and worse, he worried that pressing too hard could make her disappear from his life all over again, just like before, and watching her walk ahead, he called after her, only for things to shift suddenly as he spotted him and quickly urged him inside, looking flustered. She apologized and told him to hurry, saying the crowd was getting restless and wanted the drinks themselves, and the president shouted over the noise, telling everyone not to push and announcing that the drinks had finally arrived, and Mia then joined in, raising her voice to calm the students, telling them to wait just a moment, and the students were surprised to see her and teased her, saying the girls had been looking for her and wondering if she had tried to escape. And hesitant, Mia quietly replied that she had just gone for a short walk, and Taesu thought to himself that it was fine, there was no need to rush. Mia had said her only goal was to graduate, and today wasn't the only day that mattered, and so their first MT as third years came to an end. It had been filled with incidents, yet it left behind even more questions, like a mystery box. On their way back after the MT, Haisu and Taesu were seen close together, their faces turning red as they looked at one another with shy blushes. And finally, after 3 days, Taesu was able to get alone time with his crush. He was planning to kiss her and confess to her right now and maybe do more if she's down for it. And the viewers are also ready for this moment. but then Mia blocks everyone by coughing to get their attention. Using her usual delinquent tone, she calls out, "Hey, if there's nothing wrong with the car, why don't we get going? I'm tired. I'd like to get home and rest as soon as possible." And they both get flustered and Haisu covers her face in embarrassment, and Hyeon agrees with Mia saying, "Wasn't it just some gravel getting kicked up? Even from here, the windshield looks fine." Then holding back her anger, she asked whether she should call the insurance company for her. And Taesu, nervous, apologized to Haisu, saying that he stumbled by accident, and Haisu just shrugs it off, saying it's fine and that the car seems okay, and in the end, nothing happened because of those two unwanted guests, and Mia looks outside and grumbles, saying, seriously. If I had known this would happen, I would have taken the bus no matter what. I just assumed it would be full again." And Hyeon then suspiciously asks, "Really? You didn't avoid the bus on purpose?" And this catches Mia off guard and she questions what she means by on purpose, and feeling a bit embarrassed, Hyeon explains saying, "Unnai, what I mean is if you still have lingering feelings for Oppa and just use the bus as an excuse to stay with Taesu. Didn't you miss the bus on purpose? Even though you said you're not interested in Oppa anymore, you said it was all over." And seeing her cute expression, Mia couldn't help and hugs her playfully, saying, "Oh, are you sulking, Hyeon? Are you upset with your Unnai?" And Hyeon gets hella embarrassed and asks what she's doing all of a sudden, and Mia then smiles saying, "Don't worry, it's definitely not like that. I clearly told you last time we met, right? Coming to this university was purely by chance and I didn't really plan to meet again." And Han gets surprised and Mia clarifies saying, "If you don't believe me, it's been 5 years already, hasn't it? Dating that guy. It was just a brief thing during middle and high school, and I haven't seen him in so long that I have no particular feelings anymore. So you don't have to worry about me." And Haeun pouts and asks whether she's saying the truth, and Mia smirks, saying, "If you don't believe me, should I help you out?" And she whispers to her ear saying that so she could get together with Han Taesu. And Han becomes super red and asks whether she's serious, and Mia responds saying, "Have you been deceived all your life? Just say the word. I'm really offering to help, but I've been curious since I saw you in front of his room before. Does Hyeon really not know that you like him? Everyone else seems to know though. Have you ever confessed?" And multiple arrows pierce Han as she gets slapped by reality, and she hesitantly says, As you know, Unnai, Oppa had been tutoring me since elementary school. Maybe that's why he still only sees me as just his student or as a younger sister, like he feels guilty about it. And he's sorry." And hearing this, Mia laughs her ass off, asking whether it's really the reason for it, and Hyeon, feeling embarrassed, yells at her to not laugh, and meanwhile, Taesu and Haisu wonder what's going on, and Mia apologizes to her and says, "Don't worry. Don't we know already how rigid he is? If it doesn't work after 10 times, then try 100. Then she concludes saying, "Well, that's that. But first," she points to Haisu outside and says that should be tackled first in her opinion. And it appears that these two are plotting something nefarious against our poor student council president. But Taesu and Haisu didn't know what conversation was going between the two gremlins inside the vehicle. The scene now shifts to a week later. The semester had begun and our boy sees Mia with her hair loose and fully decked out with drip. It appears that after MT, she had decided to drop the nerdy gig and be the boss girl she is, and she had become a central figure among the freshmen. And Yoonji keeps nagging her constantly, asking to go to class together, and Mia simply tells her to stop following her. But Yoonji holds her arm and says she's the only one for her. Mia comments that she's quite the bold one, and seeing this, Taesu thinks that Mia has a strong personality, especially considering everything she did, especially to Yoonji, who was the culprit. But Yoonji has started to stalk Mia like a creepy love-struck fanatic. Apparently, she fell head over heels for Mia's cool and charismatic side that day, and Yoonji asks whether she wants to try streaming once since she is so cute, and Mia declines it, saying she's not interested, and since the incident. Mia has stopped with her tacky, nerdy disguise, and when asked why, she says that her sunbees said they'd be waiting in front of her house every morning, offering to help her style if she couldn't do it herself. But our boy, suspicious, doesn't buy her excuse. He thinks, why didn't she bother dressing up before? Her taste is one thing, but she didn't seem like she couldn't dress well, like when we met at the police station. And then suddenly, a cheerful voice can be heard, and in the next moment, Hyeon jumps on our boy, calling him her oppa, and she asks whether the classes are over and he affirms, and she says that he doesn't have work tonight either, and she cheerfully asks whether he wants to go see the flowers together. She saw them bloom beautifully along the path in front of the school. That's why she wants to see it together, and our boy thinks that Hyeon has suddenly been clingy recently, and wonders whether she has been proactive like this before, and then he gets an idea about her offer to watch the flowers. The scene now shifts to sometime later, and we see a board stating that instant photos are for sale for only 5,000 won, and Taesu stands proudly as he had found a way to make more money, while poor Hyeon has gotten scammed and is being used as free labor for his business. And she questions what this gig is all about. All she wanted was to view flowers together, and our boy sheepishly says, actually, during the photography club event in my freshman year, I won an instant camera and 30 film rolls. But I've noticed that depreciation hits pretty hard if sold secondhand, so I had it stored in my cabinet and completely forgot about it. but when you mentioned flower viewing, this came to my mind. Plus, my part-time job slot was free, and Hyun was flabbergasted by this revelation, and Taesu then thanks her, reminding that this was possible all thanks to her, and this causes Han to lighten up as he had praised her just now, and she thinks that it's okay as long as she thinks it positively. This is also a type of flower viewing. It's not like I didn't know what kind of person he was when I started to like him. And she then stands up and shouts saying, "Come step right up. Get your lovely instant photo taken. Just 5,001. You don't get this chance every day." Then she tells Taesu that if they finish early, he has to go see the flowers with her, and he agrees to her deal, and she cheerfully does her job while thinking if 10 times doesn't work then 100, no 1,000 times. My heart has always been steady like this, and it will continue to be. But then suddenly a girl approaches them asking whether it's 5,001 per shot, and Han's happiness comes to an end as she recognizes that voice. It's none other than Dabin, the famous celebrity gamer, and she asks if it's okay if she chooses who she wants to take a picture with, and it appears that this chick wants to take revenge by seducing our boy, and Han remembered the moment she realized she truly liked him. That moment was probably back when he was still dating Mia. The scene shifted to the present where Taesu was busy taking photos of everyone, each person posed in their own way, most being playful like Dabin while Hyun's expression stayed sulky, and afterward Dabin looked through the pictures and was impressed by Taesu's skill, saying he was really good at taking photos, and she asked if he had learned it somewhere or if he had a special trick, and Taesu said he just took them randomly, adding that maybe the model looked good, and Dabin smiled and teased, asking if he was flirting with her, calling him Oppa, and hearing her say that made Hyun furious, and Dabin then said, "Earlier, you said you weren't comfortable taking pictures together. Was it because you were shy with so many familiar faces around? If that's the case, it's not too late, or we can go somewhere else and take one." And watching Dabin flirt with Taesu broke Han's heart, and at that moment Mia placed a hand on Dabin's shoulder and said she suddenly wanted milk tea and cake, reminding Dabin about her promise to treat her as an apology for before, and Dabin panicked, saying she was busy, but Mia insisted, reminding her that she had promised to buy it whenever she wanted, and Dabin tried to say she wouldn't skip a promise, but asked if they could do it next time, and Mia smiled sweetly, though her eyes said otherwise, and declared that she wanted it now, and Dabin trembled and gave in, saying if her unnai wanted it now, then that was fine, and Mia thanked her, said she loved her. And as they walked away, she turned back, winked at Hyun, and told her not to be nervous, reminding her that confidence is the key for a woman to make a man fall in love. And Hyun realized that Mia had taken Dabin away on purpose so she could have some time with Taesu, and tears of joy filled her eyes as she took a deep breath, thinking she was right. She told herself not to lose courage. If 10 tries weren't enough, then she'd try 11. A woman should always stay confident. And gathering her courage, she told Taesu they should use the rest of the film, just the two of them, but right then, Haisu appeared and greeted them. And seeing her made Hyun's face drop because Haisu was the woman of Taesu's dreams, and Haisu said she had heard from others about the cherry blossom photo shoot, and she mentioned she brought the whole department, and since there were many people, it might take a while. And Taesu looked at his crush and confidently agreed, saying even if it took all night, he'd take everyone's photos, and Han felt her heart sink. She thought of Mia, wondering where she was, and joined Haisu and Taesu for the photos. It hurt, but it was also strangely fun. The next day, Taesu narrated that on his way back from his part-time job, he ran into Chamya again. He saw her on the walking trail that had recently become famous as a couple's spot, and he froze, of all places, why there, and he wondered if he should take another path. She looked like she had dressed up more than usual, so he thought she might be on a date. But when he looked closely, she was confidently posing, taking silly selfies in strange ways, and she looked beautiful while doing it, and seeing that, he realized she probably wasn't on a date, and he remembered being surprised at how Mia had turned into a model student after the semester began. According to Hyun, who shared several classes with her, Mia's popularity was insane. She was pretty, which drew attention, and her straightforward personality made everyone like her. Though she kept some distance, it gave her a mysterious charm that made people want to get closer. And he admitted to himself that he wasn't the only one who thought that way. Her style was one thing, but her beauty was undeniable even now. People couldn't stop glancing at her, and he thought about how things had changed since that night. Mia no longer seemed to avoid him, though they weren't close. She still addressed him as Sunbi, and they greeted each other when they met. And she had told him that since they would run into each other for a while, there was no need to make things awkward. And looking back, he realized he had been overly conscious of her. They could have just laughed it off and spoken casually. But now he understood there was no need for that anymore. Although she was still as unpredictable as ever, he realized he didn't need to be the one to make the first move to acknowledge her. Every time he got involved with her, it led to tiring situations. Whatever she was up to, he thought he should ignore it and return home to continue farming. But then he saw two guys approach Mia, and at first he thought they might be her friends. But then he heard Mia telling them that she already had company and that they should try hitting on someone else, and he realized they did not know each other. And the guy suggested they all have a drink together at a nearby bar they knew, but Mia told them she had already said no. And when the men continued to pester, Taesu considered stepping in but hesitated. He reminded himself that she had said she had company and wondered if he really needed to interfere, worrying that if something went wrong, he would get dragged into trouble. And at that moment, Mia suddenly came over to him and told the two men that she was currently in a budding relationship with this guy right here. And she grabbed Taesu's hand tightly and asked the men not to disturb them. And Taesu was left shocked by Mia's sudden behavior. Her unexpected act left him frozen, his thoughts echoing in disbelief as he wondered what on earth Mia was thinking. But before he could react, Mia leaned closer and whispered for him to just play along, promising that she would owe him one later. And Taesu stared at her in confusion, realizing she had blurted something out without thinking again. And in his mind, he called her a troublemaker without hesitation. Mia grabbed Taesu's hand tightly and turned toward the two men in front of them, declaring that Taesu was the one she was dating. Taesu nervously asked Mia if she realized what she had just said, but Mia, playing her part with exaggerated cuteness, asked him what was wrong, calling him her honey pie. And at that moment, the two men revealed their identities. One was Majo, 27 years old, and the other was Go Dong-soo, 26 years old. Both of them were Taesu's part-time work seniors, and they gave an awkward smile, surprised, and asked if it was really true that Taesu was dating someone. And Taesu covered his face, clearly embarrassed, and clarified that these two were his seniors from the same part-time job. And Mia was startled by the revelation, realizing the coincidence, exclaiming in frustration that this was happening again. She reminded him that something similar had happened before, wondering why everything always turned into a mess whenever Taesu was involved. And meanwhile, Yoonji was walking down the road holding an ice cream when she noticed Taesu and Mia together. Seeing them standing close, she froze in surprise, and Daejo then held up his camera, urging them to move closer, and Donggu grabbed them both and pushed them side by side, teasing that they should act like a couple in a budding relationship. And he told them to get closer and closer, and embarrassed and blushing deeply. Mia tried to deny everything. She shouted that it was all a misunderstanding, explaining that Taesu was just someone she knew from school. She said she had only tried to escape because she thought she was being hit on, but Dong-soo ignored her and told her to just get closer, pretending to understand but still pushing for the picture. And Mia grew frustrated, asking if they couldn't hear what she was saying. And at that moment, Taesu suddenly took her hand and Mia looked at him, shocked. As he quietly explained that it was useless to argue. It was spring, the season of love, and people around them were already in a dating mood. He told her that no matter what they said, those guys would still link everything to romance, and he reassured her that they were not bad people. And Dong-soo and Daejo cheerfully took their pictures, laughing about how cute the two looked together. They seemed proud, calling themselves matchmakers and saying another couple had been created by their hands. And Mia, still blushing, quietly admitted that it did seem that way, saying that if he insisted she could take a few photos with him. Her tone made it sound as though she were doing him a favor, and Taesu noticed it and complained about her tone, to which Mia smiled sweetly and said she was only joking. Her playful smile made him blush, and Mia then added that there was no special reason behind taking the photos. They were only doing it to escape from the situation, and Taesu nodded, understanding, and soon after, Daejo and Dong-soo managed to take a good photo of the two together. And meanwhile, Taesu reflected that it had been 5 years since he had taken a photo with Mia. Later, as he walked through his university campus, his thoughts wandered to the changing season. He noticed how love seemed to bloom everywhere in the world during spring, even within the prestigious halls of Seohan University around him. Students chatted excitedly, mentioning that club recruitment would start next week, and some girls giggled about joining the same clubs as their boyfriends. And Taesu couldn't help but think that love was indeed everywhere, in the media department, in the student council. Everywhere except his own department, and when he entered his club room, he found the lights turned off and his friends sitting gloomily and surprised. He asked why they were cooped up on such a nice day, and his friends sighed and told him there was nowhere else to go. They jokingly asked if he could introduce any girls, then immediately teased him, saying never mind, because he obviously couldn't, and Taesu replied that there was no point in asking if they already knew the answer. Taesu then inwardly narrated that their prestigious media communication department was filled with people caught in springtime fever, like a contagion of romance, and attendance at drinking parties was nearly perfect, with almost everyone showing up except for those in his department, and their purpose at those parties was so obvious that he didn't even bother asking anymore. But among such groups there were always those who ruined the mood, and many girls complained to Haisu that some seniors always related everything to dating during department events. And because of that, many girls avoided participating and reports of harassment increased, leaving mostly male students in attendance, a sad sausage fest. Haisu grew furious and scolded everyone, announcing that there would be no more group drinking parties under department activities for the time being. And she warned everyone to show self-restraint even if they were caught up in spring fever, and reminded the seniors to behave properly around their juniors. And Taesu noted that it had been a long time since he had seen Haisu this angry, like a storm cloud ready to burst. Some of the male students cried out in frustration, complaining about the situation and blaming those who had caused trouble. And they lamented that their dating plans for spring were ruined, vowing to find love before the season ended. and Taesu watched them and thought that cold winds were now sweeping through the media communication department. And he asked them if it really had to be during spring, suggesting they could wait. And he did have some interest in dating. There was someone he had kept in his heart, someone he liked, and as he pondered, Mia's face suddenly appeared in his mind, and he blushed in surprise, wondering why he thought of her all of a sudden. And his friends noticed his expression and asked why he was blushing, accusing him of thinking something perverted, and he quickly denied it, though his thoughts were still in disarray. And he wondered if it was because of what had happened earlier with Mia. She had promised to repay the favor someday, but he had no idea how she planned to do that. And one of his friends suddenly asked whether he was actually dating Han, and Taesu immediately denied it, frustrated that he had to repeat himself so many times. At that moment, Han was in her room staring at a photo she had taken with Taesu and Haisu, and her roommate then entered and teased her, saying she would wear the photo out by staring at it so much, and she jokingly called it a picture of her and her husband, and teased that maybe she had been about to kiss him when she interrupted. And embarrassed, Hyeon turned red and shouted in denial, calling her crazy. And her friend then laughed, saying Hyeon was really something, and mentioned that she had heard about another confession Hyeon had rejected. And we are now introduced to Park Yeon, a 21-year-old woman, and she teased Han by asking how many victims there had been so far, 10 or 12. And Hyeon replied softly that she barely even knew the guy, having only seen him a few times in liberal arts, and Yeon said that still she could at least give someone a chance. And she pointed out that even though Hyeon was head over heels for her Taesu oppa, she deserved someone better, and Han insisted that no one could be better than her oppa. And Yeon groaned, saying even with love goggles on, Han's devotion was extreme. And excited, Hyeon offered to tell Yeon again how she had fallen for Taesu, and she began recalling the time when she was in elementary school, saying that he had come over to teach her brothers, and Yeon immediately refused to listen, saying she was sick of hearing the same story every night, and she then shifted the topic, asking if Hyeon was okay about Shin Dabin, the girl who had been hitting on Taesu like a sly fox, and she wondered if Hyeon was fine leaving that alone, and Hyeon calmly said it was fine, showing no concern, and Yeon couldn't understand how she could be so relaxed, and Han explained that Taesu and that girl had barely made eye contact, maybe once or twice. And Yeon teased that she must have been keeping track like a detective, and joked that Hyeon had earned a PhD in Taesuology, and Hyeon replied that it had always been like that with him. Once Taesu became interested in something, he couldn't take his eyes off it and focused on it completely like a fool, and her expression then softened, admitting that what really concerned her was something else. Later, Mia and Haisu were seen laughing together, gossiping about Taesu, and Mia told Haisu something Taesu had said earlier, which made Haisu laugh, saying that it sounded exactly like something he would say, and Mia mentioned that since she got help from Haisu, they could meet later at the side gate, and Haisu immediately guessed she meant T-Tang snacks, surprising Mia, who asked how she knew without her saying it, and Haisu explained that she always went there whenever someone mentioned the side gate. And Mia smiled and said they really matched well, and Haisu agreed happily, and both of them high-fived in excitement, and from a short distance away, Taesu watched the two of them talking and laughing, and as he approached, they greeted him warmly, but he couldn't help wondering in silence why they had been talking about him, like a conspiracy. The scene now shifts to later. Haisu was speaking on the phone with a professor about something important while Mia stayed absorbed in her own phone, and during this, Taesu's mind kept wandering. Something about their earlier conversation still bothered, and he kept wondering what they had been talking about, that his name even came up, and the thought that they might have talked behind his back unsettled him deeply, and Mia noticed him glancing over repeatedly, and she called him out, mentioning how his constant glances had been bothering her since earlier, and Taesu grew awkward, realizing his behavior must have been obvious, and Mia, with a teasing smile, asked if he was worried that she might have badmouthed him to Haisu, and seeing his face flush red, she teased further that his expression already gave away the answer, and Taesu felt caught off guard, realizing she had only been testing him, and Mia reassured him not to worry, saying she wasn't that inconsiderate. And she reminded him about the time during the MT when Haisu Sunbi had helped them so much, and she mentioned how during that time their vibes had matched perfectly, almost as if they were already friends, and hearing this, Taesu thought about how much Mia had changed. The Mia from before used to be shy and nervous, she used to struggle even with simple conversations, unable to easily connect with others, and maybe that was why back then she had always felt so unfamiliar to him. And Haeyeon had once mentioned that Mia was totally different now, and seeing her today, Taesu finally understood those words. Mia then smirked and declared that the third wheel would now make a graceful exit, and Taesu looked at her startled, and she reminded him that she had promised to repay her debt and that this was her way of doing it. And turning to Haisu, she apologized, saying something urgent had come up, and Haisu looked surprised but accepted it, and Taesu's eyes widened in disbelief as Mia subtly gestured toward him before leaving, hinting that he and Haisu would now be alone together. And she wished him good luck before walking away, and blushing, Taesu realized that Mia was deliberately trying to set him up with Haisu, yet despite everything, she was still his ex-girlfriend, and his heart pounded heavily in his chest as he wondered if all this was really okay, and Mia glanced back at him for a moment, then leaves thinking that a debt was a debt, and Mia had simply repaid hers. Now it was just Taesu and Haisu, and he could hardly believe it. The moment he had longed for during the MT had come so easily, almost like a dream, but deep down, he didn't want it to happen like this, and he felt he should at least gather his thoughts before talking to her, and Haisu soon announced that she had finished preparing the materials. And Taesu, startled, realized how quickly she had wrapped up, and panic rose in him. Was she going to leave already? And he tried to think of something to say. Anything to extend the moment, and before he could overthink further, Haisu asked if he had eaten, and he blinked, taken by surprise, and she clarified that she meant dinner, and he admitted that he hadn't eaten yet, and soon the two went out together to eat something sweet. As they ate dessert, Haisu smiled and said she definitely needed a sugar boost after work, and Taesu looked around amazed, saying he never knew there was a place like this near their school. And Haisu replied that it was kind of her secret spot, one that only she knew, and Taesu glanced around at the crowd and joked that for a secret spot, there were way too many students from their school, and he laughed, saying that just thinking of it as her own secret place made it feel special. And anyway, watching her, Taesu couldn't help but think about how amazing Haisu is, and she reminded him that this outing was different from the time she had offered to buy him a meal, warning him not to misunderstand, and just being near her gave Taesu energy, and he realized that was the reason he liked her so much. And he thought about how when he had first moved out to live on his own, Haisu Sunbi had helped him the most. She had supported him through everything, finding a place to live, managing part-time jobs, even handling living expenses. But what had helped him the most wasn't any of those things. It was her warm smile, and he watched her enjoy the dessert and thought again about how that simple smile had become something that encouraged him every day. And he had once planned to confess his feelings right after being discharged, but life had kept getting in the way. Last year, he had been too busy taking care of Han. And this year, Mia's return had complicated everything again. And when Haisu noticed him lost in thought, she asked if something was wrong, and he quickly brushed it off, saying something had just gotten into his eye. And then she mentioned that Mia had told her there was something he wanted to say, and she said she had been waiting, wondering if he might have forgotten. And in his mind, Taesu cursed Mia for always meddling unnecessarily, and he knew exactly what he wanted to tell Haisu, that he liked her and had always liked her, and in his imagination. He confessed everything, admitting his long-held feelings, but the truth was, it never left his thoughts, and in reality, he couldn't bring himself to say a word, and he thought that if he really had the courage to confess, he would have done it long ago. And he also knew Haisu was always kind to everyone, not just to him. And what if he had misunderstood her kindness? And what if he confessed and she felt awkward or turned him down? And the thought of her rejecting him or saying she liked someone else made his chest tighten. And then Haisu asked about the meal she had mentioned earlier, and he seemed almost amused that this was all he had wanted to say. And Taesu, still nervous, thought that if she rejected him, he wouldn't be able to sleep for a month, maybe even a year. And Haisu then suggested having meat together after the midterms and mentioned that Han liked it too, and Taesu agreed quickly, pretending to laugh casually. Feeling stiff and nervous inside, and he wondered why he always froze up in front of her still, he reminded himself that sometimes the faster you go, the more careful you should be, and he thought about how Haisu was supposed to have graduated already, yet she was still here. And maybe this was fate giving him one final chance. And then Haisu calls out to him, and he asks what, and she gets closer to his ice cream and asks for a bite, and Taesu blushes as her plump lips touches his cone. Later walking home, Taesu smiled brightly to himself, thinking he should treat Chamia to a meal next time for helping him have a wonderful day with Haisu, and he couldn't hide his happiness, and a little girl nearby pointed at him, laughing at the way he was running, while her mother hushed her and told her not to stare at strange people, and Taesu didn't care, his heart was light. And he thought about how he had just finished what felt like a pleasant date with Haisu Sunbi, and wondering if Mia was asleep. He considered getting her something from the school cafeteria, but on his way back, he saw Mia sitting alone at the corner of the road, and she looked drunk, her face flushed and her movements unsteady, and Taesu stopped in his tracks, and he called out her name, and when Mia saw him, she smiled faintly and greeted him. Meanwhile, at the university pub street, Dabin shows her phone and yells, "Seriously, what the heck is with this guy? Isn't Taesu really even a man? Why is he resisting my charm?" And Yoonji awkwardly says, "You're still trying, you're persistent too." And Dabin claps back, telling her to shut up and that she's a hidden camera monster. And she explains that no matter how many times she tried to approach him first, he says he has a part-time job and on texts, he almost never replies. And even when she tried to sit next to him in class, the two students apologized to her, saying that it took them a week to reserve the seat and that it's the cheapest way to get Han Taesu's notes. And Dabin is flabbergasted that he even sells the seats next to him for some ridiculous price. And when she asked him about his day off, he said that he doesn't have one and that he attends school without his parents' support. So even while working 7 days a week, he can barely get by. And Dabin shouts saying, "What's with this? I have to earn my tuition fees crap." And Yanwoo then says that at this point she should just see it as being rejected. And Dabin grumbles that if he's going to make an excuse, he should make it more convincing. And she starts crying that no one's ever treated her like this until now. And Yanwoo then tells her not to say that so carelessly since it's a cliche in manga how fake love turns into real love. and she then warns her saying, "Didn't our Sunbi warn us beforehand that he's decent looking but his personality is seriously flawed? When women say things like that, it usually means he's seriously trouble." Also, if her intention was simply to keep us in check, she wouldn't have said he's decent looking, right? But Dabin confidently says, "Even so, it doesn't seem that he isn't interested in me." And Yan Wu looks awkwardly and asks where the heck her confidence is coming from, and Dabin then thinks about it, saying, maybe he actually has someone he's dating. You know, that acorn-like girl who's always sticking by his side? And Yan Wu asks if it's Han Sunbi, and Dabin affirms, and hearing this, Yoonji buds in saying, "I'm not so sure about that." And the two look attentively at her as she says, "Actually, I saw something quite interesting a few days ago, folks. I think this is about Mia and Taesu openly taking pictures together like a couple." The scene now returns to Taesu's apartment, and he stares at someone in his room, and we see that he had brought Mia into his room, and she's sleeping on his bed like it's her own house. And Taesu could only wonder what he should do now, and Mia then rolls to the other side and lets out a naughty sound, probably having some sussy dream, and Taesu stares at her thinking, "I know that anyone seeing this situation would definitely misunderstand, but if I could just explain myself for a moment. It was an unavoidable situation. How could I leave her sleeping right in front of the door and just go inside?" And he then recalls what had happened. He had asked Mia why she's outside, to which she had cried saying that she can't go in, and he had asked why, to which she explained that while she was drinking a bit while watching a movie in her room, she had seen something crawl towards her, and it had been a cheeky cockroach which wanted to mate with her, and she had screamed by this, and then the cockroach had disappeared into her bed. Therefore, she insists that she's going to sleep outside. And then Taesu had somehow managed to drag her to her doorstep, but she didn't enter her code, so basically, that's how she ended up in his house. And Taesu then puts her jacket on a hanger and thinks, how much did she drink to pass out like that, unaware of her surroundings? Lucky I found her. What if something had happened while she was sleeping outside? And he then looks at her and wonders why she's changed so much and what on earth she's been through, and then he stares at her jacket and thinks, looking at these, you've grown a lot. Almost 10, no, about 15 centimeters taller. No wonder Hyeon said you looked like a different person. You were about the same height as Hyeon before. What did you eat to grow like this? No. More importantly, what are you trying to do? Why are you so eager to pair me up with someone else? Last time it was Hyeon and this time it was Haisu. Aren't you being too obvious? Do you dislike me so much that you want to keep me away like this? But if you disliked me then back then, why did you? Or could it be that despite what you say, you still have lingering feelings for me? And he then shakes his head, saying, no, that's definitely not it. If she still had feelings, why go through the trouble of pushing me away? Someone with lingering feelings wouldn't say those things. And he recalls what she had said to him during the MT, that if they hadn't met again, things would have just been better. And Taesu thinks it kind of feels like maybe I'm the only one stuck in the past, while she has started acting like nothing happened between us. Is it time for me to let go too? And the Mia I liked, the Mia I loved from those days, only exists in my memories now. And then he hastily enters the washroom and turns on the shower, soaking his clothes, and then he says, all right, I've gotten over it. From now on, I'll also treat her strictly as just another junior. Maybe I've been too conscious of her since she wasn't paying any attention to me. Being the only one who cares just makes me feel like I'm losing. And he wipes his hair, saying, there's someone much more important to me than she is now, isn't there? Haisu Sunbi, she's the one who erased the word cost-effectiveness from my mind when I thought dating wasn't worth it. And he then recalls some students say that there are more than 100 people he had rejected. And another student asks whether Haisu is that famous Sunbi for being a fortress. And they joke that if Haisu Sunbi dates before graduation, then they'll donate 100 million won to the department. And in present, Taesu thinks my opponent is the fortress goddess of Metacom department. And I didn't stoop so low as to cling to someone who said she didn't like, but if she decides not to care about me anymore, then I too will stop caring about. She's so carefree after turning my heart upside down. At least I don't have a night shift today, so I can game until I feel like going to sleep. And then he notices her making a weird sound and he sees that she's about to puke. And our boy starts to sweat bullets, pleading her not to puke. And he wonders whether he should just leave her outside after all, and he then decides to endure it, saying it's just for today, and that she'll probably wake up in a couple of hours at the latest. And suddenly Mia pulls up her t-shirt and exclaims that it's hot, and seeing this, Taesu gets flustered, thinking, what the hell, why did my heart skip a beat? I literally just cooled my head and told myself not to think about her. It's fine. It's not like this is the first time I've seen her with her belly out. I've decided not to care whatever she does. And then he hears her puking and his nightmare comes true, and he then wraps her in a blanket and takes her out of his room while saying, well, in any case, she's the one who said she didn't want to owe me anything, and she's also the one who told me not to meddle in her business. It's not like I'm kicking her out because I'm conscious of her. It's just. But then he hears a female voice calling out his name, and Taesu freezes as he recognizes that voice. And Haisu looks at Mia and asks Taesu on what he's doing. Folks, I think bro is cooked. The scene now shifts to later. Mia stirs awake and is confused for a moment, and she stares at the shady man near her, and the guy turns with tears and asks if she had a nice dream. And she blushes furiously and asks what Taesu is doing in her room. and then she looks around in confusion and realizes that they are in the hallway, and she notices the blanket around her and then looks at him and asks why he's crying, and he pulls the blanket away saying, "If you're awake, I'll take the blanket back." And then he says, "You said before that we should keep our distance, right?" And Mia in confusion affirms, and he replies saying, "I think you were right, I think the same. I'll settle the bill for today's matters tomorrow." And he startles her by slamming the door shut, saying, "From now on, whether you pass out in the street or not, I won't care at all." And Mia ruffles her hair and wonders what that's even supposed to mean, and she wonders whether something bad happened. And meanwhile, from the other side of the door, Taesu cries out on, "Why does nothing ever go right when Mia is involved?" Now we get a time skip to late March, the time when clubs are actively recruiting everywhere on campus. And as Taesu walks along the university, the students talk to each other about joining a club, and they mention that there are so many clubs in this school. And just then, Taesu looks surprised as he sees Mia right in front of him, and they both mutter, "There you are again." And it appears that their attempts at social distancing still isn't going so well, and Taesu sarcastically says, "Oh, look who it is. Isn't this my junior Cha Mia who boldly promised to set me up with Sunbi, but then ruined it at the crucial moment?" And flustered, Mia questions if he's going to keep bringing that up every time they meet, even though she had already apologized for that, and Taesu questions why she's taking it so seriously, and that it's just a joke. We now get a flashback of what happened that night. Haisu questioned what he's doing here, and our boy stutters as he's caught in a compromising scene, and he asks why she's here, and she pauses for a moment and then says that her family sent over some food, but it's too much for her and her roommate, so she wanted to share some with Taesu. He glances at Mia's sleeping form and smiles like a creep, and then Haisu runs off saying, "Sorry, I barged in on your private time without realizing. From now on, I'll contact you before I visit." And seeing this, Taesu desperately calls out her name and says, "It's just a misunderstanding," but she just leaves. Classic. The next day, he brought Mia to Haisu and explained the situation properly, stating that she's his neighbor, and when he saw her drunk and laying outside, he took her in, because leaving her there would have been cruel. Later, Taesu asks Mia if she had insomnia, and she replies saying, "Not quite insomnia, but I haven't been able to sleep well lately, so I've been having a drink alone before going to bed. I've never blacked out before in my life, I'm really sorry, it was my mistake. I don't even remember what happened in the room." And her face then becomes red as he says, "So you're saying that because you don't remember, I shouldn't charge you, you want to pretend it didn't happen." And flustered, she throws items at him, saying, "Just charge me down to every last cent, but if you go around blabbing about last night, I won't let it slide, I'll come with a lawyer, got it?" And she slams the door and leaves, and Taesu decides to keep a strict distance from her now on, but currently in the present, he met her again because the universe hates him. Just then, Yoonji hugs Mia from behind, reminding her that they should be handing out flyers before hunting, and Mia gets flustered by this, and Yoonji teases, saying, "I get that spring can be lonely," and Mia blushes hella hard and asks what she means by hunting, folks. It appears that the term hunting means boyfriend hunting, which is both cute and terrifying. Then Yoonji greets Taesu, and Taesu takes some time to remember her name, and he recalls that she's the one related to the camera incident, and he finally remembers that she's Yoonji. And he asks what flyers is she talking about and questions whether she took up a part-time job, and she smiles saying nope. Dabin said she's starting a club, and Taesu gets surprised by this and asks why she's not joining one instead, and Yoonji replies saying, "Well, university life only happens once." They say just joining isn't fun enough, and she then holds the flyer out and asks if he would like to join as well. The club name is Game Dev Club, and it appears they are currently looking for founding members, but it appears that the phone number is left out, and Taesu examines the flyer saying, "Isn't this flyer too half-hearted? No contact info, and to gather members it needs to be more." And Yoonji bluntly states that it doesn't matter and that they did it on purpose, and Taesu gets curious, and she explains, saying, "The founding members are already gathered. We just have to do the recruiting as a formality. It's partly to make a playground. If we were seriously recruiting, we'd be done in 10 seconds, right?" And Taesu inwardly admits that the girls are popular, though he doesn't know them well, and Yoonji then says to Mia, "If you're interested, join us, Sunbi. I owe you from before, and everyone will welcome you if it's you, Sunbi." And flustered, Mia whispers to Taesu to not join, and he inwardly says "I would, it's a playground for girls after all. I can hardly participate in our department activities, let alone a club." And Yoonji then picks a leaf from Mia's hair, and with a gentle smile, she jokes that she's clumsy, and seeing this, Taesu inwardly says, "Still, they're pretty impressive after what happened at the MT for them to be so friendly. I wonder if it's because I've started to become conscious of her, seeing her like this. It really feels like she's grown so much. It feels like I'm really starting to see her as a different person, which doesn't even make sense. Her face and voice are the same, so how can she be someone else? Well, if I really want to check, there is a way." The scene now shifts to later. He enters a classroom and sees Mia, and he asks if she's stalking him, to which she claps back that she should be the one asking him that question, and he then slowly closes the door, saying that he'll wait outside till she's done, and she yells at him to just come in since it's distracting, and Taesu then enters and opens his locker, which is filled with books. And he stares at her and inwardly says there is actually one straightforward way to see if this Mia is the real one, and that is her chest. Bro shamelessly stares at her melons, and she blushes a bit and coughs. And she closes the book she was reading and asks why he's staring at her. And Taesu blushes a bit and says, "Well, I just found it a bit fascinating. You mentioned having insomnia lately, but despite that, you look quite lively, don't you think? No dark circles or anything." And hearing this, she says, "Are you stupid? Of course, I cover them up with makeup." And she then reassures him that her insomnia is not because of him, so he should not worry, and she explains, saying, "My sleep schedule is just messed up, that's all, it's not that I can't sleep because of you." And Taesu nonchalantly says, "Oh, okay." And Mia gets irritated, saying, "What's with that reaction? I was trying to be considerate since it seemed like you were bothered." And Taesu smiles, saying, "I mean, I just thought maybe it was because you were playing games all night." And Mia gets confused and asks, "Why is that?" To which he says, "What do you mean why? Don't you remember?" Good story, and Mia gets flustered and asks why he brought that up all of a sudden. And just then, Shin Dabin enters the room while cheerfully greeting them. And Taesu says to Mia, "Aren't you Fallen Power Angel, the guild master of the 5th ranked guild on the server?" And then both of them look at Dabin, who is standing there frozen. We then get a glimpse of Dabin's memory. In the game, she cheerfully approached her master, who is named Fallen Power Angel, and they stand near a cliff and observe the scenery. And Dabin, who is named Rich Bug, excitedly says to her master that they have finally reached top 5 on the server. And her master then replies saying, "Stop making a fuss, Rich Bug. We're still far from done. Our goal is to be number 1. We must not be satisfied until we achieve that." And Dabin is in awe by her master, and she inwardly says, "No, master, I'm already more than satisfied. If you hadn't picked me up when I was a newbie, I wouldn't have been able to see this view." And later in bed, she had cuddled a plushie of her master, and with heart-shaped eyes, she mutters, "Master, you were amazing today, too. What kind of person are they? Surely they must be an amazing person." And she kisses the plushie, saying, "If someday I ever meet Master in person, I will." And then the memory ends, and we see Dabin frozen in shock as she mutters, saying, "My unnai is fallen. What did you say?" Dabin then quickly leaves the classroom, but she stands there still, and her thoughts spiral as she questions herself whether Mia unnai is Fallen Power Angel, and she blushes hella hard and wonders if she's her master who she's in love with. But then she finds it strange, saying, "If Mia unnai is master, does it even make sense for her to get along with Taesu? Didn't they have to go to the police station?" And just then she hears Mia from inside scolding Taesu that they agreed not to talk about that at school. And he replies saying, "Oh right, I forgot, you mentioned your guild has a lot of enemies." And Dabin then recalls what Yoonji mentioned earlier, if someone's dating. It's definitely not Hyun Sunbi, but Mia unnai, I've seen it. They took pictures together arm in arm at the park. They secretly slipped away during the MT2. And they've been hanging out quite often at school. I wonder if they've known each other for a long time. And Dabin then fantasies Mia lovingly saying to Taesu, "Oh gosh, honey, we agreed that story was going to be our little secret, remember?" And Taesu apologizes, saying, "Sorry babe, it just slipped my mind." And Dabin in shock wonders whether they are really in that kind of relationship. And she then walks toward the bustling lecture room 3. And as she enters, she remains in a frozen dilemma, and just then her friend Yan Wu approaches and asks why she's late, and that she was about to go look for her since she couldn't reach her. And Dabin calls out to her with a distressed tone and holds her by the shoulder, saying, "If you find out the master you respect is in a messed up relationship with a jerk, what would you do?" And Yan Wu in confusion asks what she means and whether this is about a game. And Dabin shakes Yan Wu and cries out, saying it's about Han Taesu and Mia unnai. And Yoonji said she saw them on a date before. What should I do? Should I cheer for them? Should I really be rooting for them? And just then a voice asks, who did what with whom? And the two turn in confusion and sees Han tightening her grip on a protein shake. And Han tilts her head ominously and asks her to tell that story a bit more in detail. And Dabin gulps and inwardly says that a wild acorn has appeared. Later, the scene shifts to an apartment building. A woman rings a doorbell, but it doesn't work. And then the crazy woman starts spamming it like crazy. And Taesu opens the door in confusion. And the crazy woman is revealed to be Han. And Taesu asks what she's doing here. And Hyun keeps spamming the bell while responding that she came to chat with Mia unnai. But the bell isn't working. And Taesu stares at the crazy woman and states that maybe it's broken. And Hyun stops spamming the bell. And with her pea-brain, she asks if it's really broken. The scene now shifts to later. Han had told the rumors she heard about Taesu and Mia, and Taesu with a nonchalant smile says, "What? People are saying I'm dating Chamia. Who started that nonsense?" And Han holds the cup of tea saying, "Right, it's not true, is it?" And Taesu affirms saying, "Of course it's nonsense. You heard it that day, didn't you? Chamia said herself that she and I are done." And Hyun with a nonchalant smile says, "Yes, I did hear that, but I just wanted to check if Mia unnai knows about the rumor, just to confirm." But Taesu notices her dark aura and says, "It's really just to confirm, right?" And Han shyly drinks the tea, saying, "Of course, what could I possibly do to unnai? Anyway, why are you here? Around this time, you should be." And Taesu reveals that his tutoring session got cancelled for tonight, so he has some free time until his part-time job at 9. And Hyun then with a blush says, "So you have about 3 hours free. Then how about we go out for a walk or something? But Hyan's happiness is cut short as he shuts it down, saying, sorry, I'm in the middle of a side job now, so I can't. And Han still keeps a cheerful expression, saying, really? Then I guess there's no choice. It's not like I'm unaware of your situation, Oppa, of course, work comes first. And then she asks if she could hang out in his room until he's done, and he nods his head in affirmation. And then she laughs awkwardly and lets out a sigh as tears threaten to fall out. And Taesu also awkwardly laughs while inwardly saying, of course I'm not stupid, I know Hyan has feelings for me. And he recalls his childhood memories of her saying, I'll leave if you buy me more rice cake skewers. And at 11 years old, she was known as the crazy chihuahua of Gwangjang-dong. And the problem is, in my eyes, Han still looks like this. Is it because I've been seeing her since we were young? I can only see her as the kid who was always eating rice cake skewers. And Haeun then interrupts his thoughts saying, oh right, next week. My brothers are visiting and they promised to treat me to meat. But Taesu quickly shuts it down, saying, sorry, I'm busy that day, you go and enjoy it with your family. And Hyan tells that she didn't even tell the date yet, and then she sighs saying, well, Oppa is busy, there's nothing we can do about it. And Taesu awkwardly laughs saying, you know the saying, if you keep accepting freebies you'll lose your hair. And then he inwardly says, though in the case of Hyan's family it might literally happen physically speaking. Haeun has two older brothers with a big age gap who are extremely fond of her and both of them have always disliked me intensely. And he recalls them saying to him, if you start hitting on Hyan just because she's cute, I'll make you bald. And panicking, Taesu had replied saying, no way, why would I? And the other brother then says, what are you saying? Hyan's not cute, and Taesu inwardly says, whenever I went over for tutoring at Hyan's place, they always gave me a hard time like that. In fact, now both of them are on the national team. If I ever looked at Hyan as more than a friend or a younger sister, my hair would be on a frame instead of my head. And he then stares at her body while inwardly saying, come to think of it, Hyan has changed quite a lot compared to middle and high school, hasn't she? She's grown a lot taller, her physique has changed, and even her makeup compared to back then. She's practically a different person, but not as much as Chamia. And he then ponders if Mia is actually a different person, and he inwardly says, is she trying to avoid me because she's afraid I'll notice she's a different person? Could she have a twin or something? No, I've never heard Mia mention having siblings, but it's hard to say she's a different person, because not only I but even Han recognized her, and she knew about the game console incident from middle school, and when we first met she even knew about my family background. Then what's this occasional sense of discrepancy I feel? And he recalls Mia saying that she doesn't like coffee, but when he confronted her she was shocked. And then he recalls another scene where he asked if she remembered the school's back hill they used to go, but she remained oblivious. And he recalls another scene where she says, as we talked, our vibes matched so well that it felt like we were already friends. I've realized that now there's no need for that. And Taesu then inwardly says, is that what it is? Am I overthinking, or am I secretly hoping she's someone else? And just then Hyan gets in front of his face and our boy looks confused, and Han says to him, Oppa, your face is red. And Taesu blushes and wonders when she got near his face, and she holds his forehead saying, you seemed restless just now, so I wanted to check, do you have a fever or something? And Taesu inwardly wonders whether he acted that uneasy, and she holds her own forehead and says that he doesn't seem like he has a fever. And then she holds his forehead again and asks if he's feeling dizzy or anything, and she calls him Oppa and he blushes hella hard and inwardly says, wait, why is my heart racing all of a sudden? Is it because Hyan suddenly got so close? Or maybe it's because of Mia? And he looks away awkwardly just then, and then Han realizes something. She wondered when did she get this close to her Oppa and that she's even casually touching him, and she recalls her roommate's advice that she shouldn't wait for a chance like a fool, instead she should create one. And she says that if she were as cute as Hyan, she'd just kiss him and make it a done deal. And Hyan blushes hard and wonders why she suddenly remembered that. And the atmosphere turns intimate as Taesu calls out her name in a lower tone, and Han calls him Oppa and her body gets moist, and she inwardly says, am I maybe thinking this is a chance or am I anxious? And she recalls Mia offering to help her get together with Taesu, but she immediately rejected it, and she had told Mia that she doesn't need help, and even without that, she'll win Oppa over with her own strength. And then in the present, she inwardly says, despite confidently saying that to Mia, am I frustrated with myself for not being able to do anything? And Taesu clicks the keyboard randomly and calls out her name again, and Han gets closer to his lips, ordering him to just wait for a second. And then as she's about to kiss him, the doorbell rings and their romantic moment is cut short, and Mia from the other side asks if Taesu is home, and she rings the doorbell again and wonders if he's not here. And she rings the doorbell again and wonders if he's not here, and Hyan covers Taesu's mouth as Mia says it's strange since she heard keyboard sounds coming from the room. And Taesu couldn't breathe as Han has pinned him and is covering his face, and he tries to say that he can't breathe, but she just tells him to stay silent, and it appears that her yandere personality is active right now. And Mia, oblivious to this, says that she wanted to tell him that she opened a package by mistake because it was delivered wrongly, but there is no response from inside, so she decides to leave, saying that it's fine and that she'll explain it at school tomorrow. and then, as the coast is clear, Hyeon lets out a sigh of relief, saying that was a surprise popping out of nowhere, and then she looks down at our boy and asks if he's okay, and then she screams out, "Oppa." He's foaming from the mouth, and she accidentally killed her own childhood friend, and Taesu inwardly says that this is the final reason why he can't date her, and she cries out loud and shakes him back and forth, asking if he's all right, and he inwardly says, "Just a year ago, a lot of people criticized me for not understanding Hyeon's feelings, but now everyone says this." And we then see what the others said. His friend who is drunk tells him that for the sake of mankind, he should hold on to Han. And another friend says that she is just too much to handle, and therefore he doesn't mind not dating her, and that Taesu should take her instead. And he then recalls another scene where Hyeon had kicked a pickpocket fellow and another scene where she back-kicked a molester. And she didn't feel remorse, and said she felt satisfied to beat people up. And Taesu inwardly says there are more than a few legendary stories that Hyeon has racked up, from a young age Han, who grew up in a survival of the fittest world, learned that strength is justice itself, and that's why it took quite a long time to suppress that nature. And we then get a scene of Hyeon asking if she's refusing to listen, and Hyeon stabs a hole through the table using her chopsticks while saying, "That's strange, I explained it clearly and she seemed to have understood it well." And Hyeon's friends then tell her to control her strength or else the repair bill might come again. And Taesu's friends tell him that even the wild Hyeon is gentle in front of him. And the other friend agrees that they're a match made in heaven, but our boy doesn't think so. And he thinks of Hyeon as an elephant and says how can he, a mere ant, dare to dine with an elephant? And now in the present, Hyeon cries out like a baby elephant and shakes him hard, calling him Oppa repeatedly. And Taesu inwardly says, "Of course I know Hyeon is kind and a good person, but Han's instincts that come out every now and then are scary on a visceral level." And due to this, he decides to skip work today. Then time flew, and it's now mid-April, the midterms are right around the corner, and in the game dev club Dabin grumbles, saying, Why is it midterm season already? It feels like the entrance ceremony was just yesterday, so why?" And Yan Wu points out that it's because 8 weeks have passed since the semester started, and Dabin tells her that she knows that, and then she rests herself on the table saying, "Why is that hard times come all at once? Everything's already giving me a headache." And Yoonji asks whether something happened, to which Yan Wu says that Dabin is talking about Mia and Nai, and Yoonji curiously asks why all of a sudden she's talking about Mia, and Dabin responds saying, "It's because what you mentioned before about Mia and Nai and Taesu." And Yoonji asks if it's about the dating, and Dabin says that she's not sure if the dating was confirmed up to that point. And just then, Mia enters and asks what dating and questions who's in a relationship, and seeing her sudden arrival, Dabin screams her lungs off and disappears using her gamer skills. And Yoonji excitedly greets her bestie, and Yan Wu also greets Mia, and confused Mia asks, "Wasn't Dabin just here?" And Dabin cuddling a cushion stutters and greets Mia, and her friends then wonder how she got over there so fast, and Mia questions why she's over there acting like that. And Dabin blushes hard and inwardly keeps saying that Mia Unnai is the guild master and that she's in a relationship with Han Taesu. And Yan Wu notices the change in Mia and asks, "You look a bit tired, Unnai, did you stay up all night or something?" And Mia sheepishly says, "Oh, is it that obvious? I tried to hide it with concealer." And just then Yoonji bluntly asks, "Did you perhaps stay up all night during a date with Taesu Sunbi?" And Dabin gets startled and inwardly says that she shouldn't ask about that so directly, and Mia's ear reddens as she stutters saying, "Why are you suddenly bringing up Sunbi's name?" And Yoonji gets straight to the point, saying, "Actually, I saw you guys, you and Oppa were on a date at the park. What exactly is going on between you two? Even during the MT and at school, you two are often together." And Dabin's ears perk up as Yoonji gets closer to Mia saying, "Dating in secret, but don't want to go public. Can we think of it like that?" And Mia then goes to reveal the relationship between her and Taesu, and Dabin braces for the news. Then the scene shifts to the woman's toilet, and Dabin smiles brightly as the misunderstanding was cleared. Mia had said, "If I think about it, maybe we're kind of like enemies. I can't go into details now, but there was a big incident at the police station before." And Dabin washes her hands saying, "Of course, given that event, how could there be anything between them? Especially with that expression, it's enough for anyone to see how much she dislikes that Taesu." And then with a blush, she smiles, saying, "If there's nothing between those two, that means there's still a chance." But then as she exits the toilet, she's stunned, and she sweats bullets, saying, A chance. Not being something with him also means a chance about what?" And the birds fly off as Dabin screams in confusion, and it appears that she had fallen into the typical manga cliché, where when you hate someone, you end up falling in love accidentally. The scene now shifts, and we see Mia walking thoughtfully, and she recalls Yoonji mentioning that Mia and Taesu had been spotted frequently together, so others would also think she's dating him. Mia mutters in denial about the frequent time together, but then she recalls the past interactions with Taesu, and notes that it is indeed quite frequent, like wow, they really do run into each other a lot, and she looks down thoughtful while saying, "Seriously, ever since I met Han Taesu, all sorts of exhausting things keep happening. Where did it all go wrong? Was it when I met him first in uni, or was it when I met him in the police station? I should have been more cautious when I realized that Han Taesu was living in this area. I was too careless." And just then, she bumps into Taesu and she calls out his name in surprise, and Taesu asks, "Why are you so surprised? Did I seem like a ghost or something?" And Mia looks away blushing while inwardly saying, "I was just thinking about you and then you popped up out of nowhere," which is awkward. And Taesu asks why she's wearing plain clothes today and whether she decided to stop dressing up. And flustered, she says, "No, it's just because it's exam time." And then she looks away embarrassed and says, "Wait, why am I explaining this to you? Why do you care how I dress?" "It's my choice," and Taesu replies saying, "No, it's just it reminds me of the you I used to know and it looks nice." And Mia is taken aback by this, like a compliment out of nowhere, and he walks off waving, saying, "I'm heading off first, good luck with your test prep, don't overdo it with the all-nighters." And Mia casually waves back at him while saying, "You too." But then she blushes hella hard and turns away quickly as she wonders why she waved him back, and she inwardly says, seriously. Since meeting Han Taesu, everything's been a mess because none of this was part of my plan. Running into Taesu again at the university was unexpected, and meeting repeatedly like this, plus the constant bickering wasn't planned either. And also today, just the two of us getting stuck in the elevator wasn't planned either. Folks, today it appears that fate made them get stuck in the elevator, because the universe loves drama. It starts to rain outside and we see Taesu pressing the emergency button and giving the details of their issue and location of their apartment building. And Taesu then tells Mia that it will take around 30 minutes due to the rush hour, and she stares at him with wide eyes and he asks, "What is it? Are you worried since we're trapped here alone together? Don't worry, there's a camera over there, right? If anything happens," and Mia cuts him off saying, "No, I know that, but aren't you a bit too calm? Aren't you scared?" "I felt like my heart was going to drop," and Taesu responds saying, "Well, the rent is cheap, so this is understandable, right?" Which is such a Taesu answer, but Mia cuts him off saying that's not what she meant, and she trembles in fear saying, "Isn't this just like one of those cliches from horror movies? Like we're going to hear some creepy ringtone and the elevator will start shaking." And Taesu looks confused and then teases her saying, "Did you believe in ghosts? Should I tell you a scary story?" And Mia steps back in fear and yells, saying, "Don't you dare, I'll hit you if you do. I was tormented by someone I knew who was really into that stuff when I was little. Do you know the feeling when in game you find a healing item, but it's actually an extremely harmful substance? Anyway, ghosts, monsters, spirits, all supernatural stuff is a no for me. I really don't get why people pay to watch that stuff." And just then the lights go out as a thunderous roar can be heard, and Mia screams her lungs off that it's a ghost, and Taesu frantically tells her to calm down, but she keeps screaming in panic, and he then holds her close to his chest, which takes her by surprise, and he turns on his flashlight, saying, "Calm down a bit, it's just a temporary power outage." And Mia's ears redden as her face is snuggled into him, and he says, "Since when did you start getting so jumpy? You usually act like you're not afraid of anything." And just then the lights come back and Taesu says, "See, the power came back quick. If you freak out and get hurt, that's more dangerous anyway. It's fine now, so stop worrying." But just then he notices that her face is snuggled into his chest, and he blushes hella hard and gets back quickly, stuttering, "This isn't what it seems, I was just trying to calm you down." And she then shouts that she knows and that he doesn't have to say it. And Taesu looks surprised as she, with a flushed face, repeats that she knows without him telling her, and Taesu notices her trembling state. And then we see her wearing his jacket around her as he says it would have been nice to have a towel or something. For now, just hang in there even if it's a bit cold. And Mia stares at him and he asks whether she has something to say. And she hesitantly says, "No, not really, I was just curious about something." And he checks his phone saying, "Hey, I set the hunt to auto and I was trying to check it remotely, but the internet isn't working well, maybe because we're in the elevator." And Mia then questions why he's thinking about that in this situation. And he replies saying, "Even if it's just 100 gold, earning more helps cover living expenses. You know very well that maximizing farming efficiency is crucial." And Mia glares at him for a moment and then says, "Actually, there's been something I've been curious about, can I ask?" And Taesu questions what it is, and she asks why he's always going on about money, and he questions if she's trying to pick a fight with him again. And she responds saying, "No, I'm not picking a fight. From what I know, your family is pretty well off, so I wondered why you were working part-time. Is it because your allowance isn't enough? Come to think of it, even the gaming, isn't it risky? Weren't your parents super strict about stuff like this?" And Taesu remains silent for a moment, and then says, "Why are you asking about someone else's business when you don't talk about yours?" And Mia apologizes for it, but just then he reveals that he had cut ties with his family, and this shocks her, and Taesu tells her, "I left around the end of my senior year, so it's been about 4 years. And Mia asks whether he ran away from home, and he explains saying, "Well, not really running away, more like leaving. I'm not a kid. I managed to endure a bit thanks to the military service even without any money. It's a pity I can't get a national scholarship because my family register is the same, but I'm kind of used to it now, so I'm managing on my own." And Mia then inwardly says, "I did think something was strange, like asking for money when we met, earning living expenses through part-time work, and even choosing Seohan University, which is, let's say, not exactly a prestigious name. It's something that the Taesu I know would never do." And Taesu then tells her that after his discharge, Haisu Sunbi has helped him a lot, and Mia inwardly says, Han Taesu's family was well known in the neighborhood for their wealth, They have a mansion with a wide yard and a big dog roaming free while servants are handling all the work. It's like a picture-perfect wealthy house, completely different from the shabby, unremarkable life in a small, single-room rental house that Chamia lived in. And Mia apologized to Taesu, and he, confused, asks what's with that all of a sudden. And she explains, saying, "Back when we first met again, I complained a lot to you, didn't I? Calling you out for being more spoiled than rich guys or whatever." And she covers her face in embarrassment, saying, "I thought you became a snob who was just trying to mess with me on purpose, sorry." And Taesu then smiles awkwardly and says, "Well, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have any feelings like that, but don't worry too much about it. Life can be like that sometimes. Honestly, I wanted to talk more with you back then, but I had no idea how to hold on to you." Mia stares at him while inwardly saying, "I thought of him as a delicate flower in a greenhouse. I assumed he was living happily in the most privileged circumstances." And Taesu says to her, "I'm not the best with words, I thought maybe if there was money involved, we could meet again." And Mia replies saying, "So that's how it was." And Taesu says, "Don't worry, I didn't do the right thing either." And Mia inwardly says, "The more I learn about him, the more the guilt in my heart grows heavy. If he ever finds out the truth, he'll probably resent me a lot." And Mia silently mutters, "Sorry." And just then he says, "It's kind of a funny story, but at one point I thought you might be a different person." And this remark stuns her, and she quickly tries to play it off by asking why he's saying that out of the blue. And he explains saying, "I mean, you've changed so much that you seem like a different person. Not that you really are," Hyun kept mentioning. And it actually sounds sort of convincing, so it's funny. And Mia stays frozen by this revelation, and he gets closer to her face and asks if she's feeling okay. And then she starts to panic and asks why he's close all of a sudden, and he replies saying, "Well, it's just that you've been teetering since a while ago. Your face is red. Are you sick?" And in a flustered tone, she says, "Don't worry, it's just because it's hot." And meanwhile, she inwardly says, "Oh my gosh, why are you suddenly leaning in like that?" And then she quickly stands up saying, "Hasn't it been about 30 minutes already? Why aren't they here?" And Taesu replies saying, "I don't know, maybe they're stuck in traffic. It's rush hour. Do you want me to check again if you're worried to see how close they are?" And her face remains pale as she says, "Actually, it does feel a bit too hot here, and it's starting to feel a bit stuffy to breathe since a while ago." And Taesu, in confusion, says that he's not feeling like that at all. And just then, she collapses to the floor and he's left confused by this, and he calls out her name in worry as she looks pale. We then get a glimpse of Mia's past. Once upon a time in a village, there lived a girl named Mia whom people called stupid. People called Mia stupid because she always walked around with a silly smile on her face. Even when she found out her parents weren't her real ones and that she was adopted, Mia still never lost her smile. And her mom hugs her tightly and says that it's okay and that she's still her daughter, and even in 3rd grade. When her dad's factory went bankrupt and they were drowning in debt, Mia still didn't lose her smile, because even in the middle of all that hardship, her parents never abandoned. And when she became a middle schooler, even when her belongings disappeared every day and her desk kept getting trashed, Mia still didn't lose her smile, because whenever things got hard, her prince on a white horse would come and cheer her up. And in the spring of her first year in high school, when her mom collapsed from overwork and was hospitalized, Mia smiled again because her mom said she wanted to see her smiling face. And the summer of the following year, when Mia learned her dad squandered all the money for her mom's hospital bills by drinking alcohol, Mia still smiled because she learned that the prince's mother was her mom's friend. And even when she went to beg for her mom's hospital fees, Mia still smiled. And Taesu's mother had handed over the money, saying, "Really? You are her daughter, I see, so you're the reason why Taesu insists on staying here. Good, keep ruining his life like you always have." And poor Mia still kept a smile on her face, even when Taesu's mother thanked her for ruining her son's life, and when the money she begged for no longer held any meaning, when she couldn't even give her mom a proper funeral, and when her father forcibly dragged her away from her hometown. Only then did Mia stop smiling. Only then did Mia finally understand why she was considered stupid, if she had never existed. Maybe her prince wouldn't have fought with his family and would be happily living abroad. Maybe her mom wouldn't have collapsed from overwork. Maybe her dad's factory wouldn't have failed. And maybe everyone would have been happier if only I had never existed. Only then could Mia smile again, because even a stupid girl like her still had one thing she could do. Just then Mia wakes up from her nightmare, and she pants heavily as she had recalled Mia's life, and she looks around confused, wondering aloud on where she is. And just then, she hears a voice saying that she's awake, and Mia's eyes widen as she sees a knife held by Hyun, who with a dark aura says that she could have slept a little longer. And Mia screams her lungs off, and Han gets flustered and asks why she's screaming out of nowhere. And Mia backs away to the other side of the bed, and in confusion mutters Han's name, and Han awkwardly asks if she had a nightmare or something. The scene now shifts to a little while later. As the pot boils, we see that Hyun had explained that Mia had collapsed in the elevator, and Taesu had brought her to his place. And while Mia processes this information, Han says, "I was surprised too. Getting trapped in the elevator was one thing, but seeing you in Oppa's bed anyway. Oppa suddenly asked me to come over. I was pretty worried on my way here, folks. when Hyen had gotten a call from Taesu asking her to come over to his house at night. Her roommate had gassed her up that it is a romantic date, and Hyen had quickly agreed to it. But when she arrived, her disappointment was immeasurable as he had called for another reason. And Mia then notices her different clothes and blushes hard, exclaiming in disbelief whether Taesu changed her clothes, and Han brings the porridge, saying, "Obviously, I'm the one who changed your clothes. What were you expecting?" Mia quickly settles down, and Han places the porridge on her lap and tells her to eat. And Mia looks at it in confusion and mutters, "Egg porridge," and Han confidently says, "You'll be surprised when you taste it. It might not be enough to knock someone out by how good it is, but still, I guarantee the taste." And Mia curiously asks where Taesu is, and Hyen reveals that he went to get some medicine. And then Hyen asks if she's disappointed that it's her and not Taesu taking care of her right now. And flustered, Mia denies the allegations, and then she apologizes, saying, "Sorry, I said I'd help, but it always ends up like this." And Han looks at her with a thoughtful gaze as Mia says, "Is it uncomfortable for you with me here? But it's really not like that, it's a misunderstanding." And then Hyen speaks up, saying, "It's fine, I don't mind." And Mia looks surprised, and Hyen says, "Didn't I say I can manage well on my own without your help? Well, if it bothers you that much, think of it as me paying you back for when we took the cherry blossom photos." And Mia, in confusion, asks if that's enough for her, and Hyen crosses her arms, saying, "Yes, so eat it before it gets cold. Sick person should just focus on getting better without worrying about anything else." And Mia's eyes widen by this, and then she smiles at the caring behavior of Hyen, and Hyen takes back the porridge, saying that if Mia doesn't want to eat, then she'll eat it. And Mia quickly says that she'll eat it, and she takes a spoonful of it and blows on it to cool it down a bit, and then she takes it in her mouth, and in the next moment her face lights up as the taste is heavenly. And in excitement, she asks what the heck this is and that it's so good, and Han gives a thumbs up and winks, saying, "I told you it's guaranteed, right? Amazing, isn't it?" And Mia enjoys it, saying, "It's so warm, the soft rice grains smoothly melt in my mouth, and the sesame oil aroma just fills my nose." And Hyen agrees, saying, "That's exactly what I thought when I first had it. How tasty could porridge be, really?" And Mia eats more of the porridge and says, "I usually avoid porridge because I don't like its texture, but I could easily eat 3 bowls of this." And Mia then asks Hyen where she learned the recipe and if she can teach her as well. And Hyen then looks at her with a dark, menacing glare and asks what she means. And Mia looks at her in confusion. And then her face twists in horror as Hyen reveals that she was the one who taught her the recipe. "Folks, I think this girl is an imposter, the real Mia. She's probably dead because when Taesu told her that she seemed like a different person, you could see it in her eyes, pure panic like a shadow crawling across her mind. And there are moments that were far too suspicious, almost like she was constantly on the edge of being caught. During the MT, when Taesu offered her coffee, she said she didn't like it. But then when he reminded her that she used to drink it all the time, she froze. Every reaction, every little slip screams that something is wrong. This theory, it might just confirm it. She's an imposter. The scene cuts to a pharmacy at night with people coming and going, and the protagonist asks for a fever reducer and the clerk asks if it's for him. And he says it's for a girl he knows and seems a bit embarrassed. And he explains that she hasn't been able to sleep well lately. And Taesu suggests she might be taking something for insomnia as a precaution. Smooth move, bro. As the clerk goes to choose the best pills for the symptoms, Taesu inwardly says that he ran off without checking anything and feels a bit guilty, like he's dodging responsibility, and he knew there was a way to find out if that girl was really Mia, a secret test. In a flashback, the young Mia reveals she has a scar on her chest, and Taesu is surprised by the random revelation and jokes about it being an emotional scar, and he asks again if it's just an emotional scar. But she reveals she got the scar from falling at the playground as a kid, and Taesu asks why she mentioned that all of a sudden, and she stays quiet in embarrassment, and she says it feels good to share a secret because it makes them seem like a real couple. And then she suggests that instead of telling him, she could show him the scar, and with a flushed face, Taesu is speechless and his heart races, and he freaks out and asks if she knows what it means to show him that, and she replies saying, "Don't worry, it's nothing gross, so old it's almost faded. You can barely even see the mark now." And Taesu still hesitates. And then she comes up behind him and hugs him, and she looks at him with a pout as he glances at her. And she says she knows what it means and he is surprised. And she further says, "I'd be fine showing you, Taesu. Even if it's not okay for anyone else, it would be for you." And Taesu jokes that sometimes she seems bolder than many guys he knows, but Mia retorts that she said that after a lot of courage. The scene now returns to the present, and as he walks towards his house, he reflects about everything, and he had the chance to check for himself. But his hands wouldn't move like a coward. He asked his friend to confirm Mia's scar by saying that Hyen seemed interested in knowing whether Mia was real or not. And just like that, he left the checking to his friend and waited for the result. And the protagonist wonders why he hesitated so much to do the check. And he questions if it was out of fear of finding out she wasn't who he knew, or was it because he's afraid she's the real Mia. Now the scene returns to where Mia got confronted, and Han reveals that it was Mia who taught her to make the porridge. And she asks if Mia had forgotten, and Han reveals it was Mia's mother's recipe for when she got sick. And Mia looks as if she got caught, and then with a fake smile she replies, maybe it tastes different because I have a bit of a cold, silly me. Why didn't I recognize this? This is that one, right? With tuna fish sauce and sesame oil, you put in 2 spoonfuls of sesame oil, and Hyun stares at her thoughtful and Mia takes another spoon, saying, maybe it's just because you're better at cooking than me, Hyun. Maybe that's why it tastes even better. Are you sure you didn't add anything else? And hearing this, Hyun smiles warmly and then sheepishly replies, actually, I don't really know. Oppa made it after all. I only added some green onions at the end. Sometime later, Taesu arrives home, and he opens the door and is surprised to see Hyun standing there. And she greets him and says he took longer than she thought. And he asks about Mia, whether she left early, and Han reveals that Mia just went to her room a moment ago and questions whether they didn't bump into each other. And Taesu realizes he missed her by a minute. And then Han also reveals that Mia said to thank him for the elevator thing and that she'll treat him properly next time. And Hyun then walks to the door saying that she should get going now and that it's almost curfew at the dorm. And Taesu thanks her for her help, but before she leaves he calls her and asks how was it? Did Mia have a scar? And Hyun doesn't reveal that, and instead she tells him to meet her next Sunday at noon in front of the main gate of Seohan Plaza before she leaves. And she tells him to buy her lunch there, so she'll tell him whether she had it or not. And Hyun states that he wanted to use her to check Mia, so she needs at least that much in return for it to be a fair deal. And Taesu sheepishly asks if it was that obvious, and she replies saying, you thought I wouldn't notice. Come on, I know you well still. I'll give you 20 extra points for not trying to take her clothes off and check yourself. And Taesu smiles saying, aren't you being too generous? You could be mad at me, you know. And she replies saying, it's fine, use me as much as you need, I told you, right? No matter what happens, wherever or whenever, I'll always be on your side, Oppa. And Taesu is stunned with his face blushing a lot, and she laughs saying, what's that look for? Did you just fall for me or something? Should I confess to you right now then? Just kidding, you have to confess first. Oppa, when you truly fall for me, you didn't forget our promise, right? And Taesu with a smile affirms, and then she with a smile leaves saying it's good. Taesu then washes the dishes while thinking about how his friend is such a good person, and he reflects that she's always cheerful and someone everyone could love, and a memory of a late-night date with Hyun comes to his mind, and with a flushed face he watches her and feels a little emotional, and Hyun smiles wide at him and she seems happy in that moment, and the protagonist thinks someone so bright is too good for him. And Taesu again says, seriously, Hyun's just too nice for her own good, I mean. She wants me to buy her a meal next Sunday if I want to know whether Mia is real or not, but just by saying that, she pretty much gave it away already. Folks, I think this is the real Mia since she does have a scar on her chest, as we can see when she's bathing. Plot twist loading.